Welcome back to our channel. Today we will explore a new case. The case of Aaron Barley. Kindness is not just a gift given, but sometimes also a double-edged sword if misplaced. When compassion is betrayed, will what we give become the seeds of a tragedy? Peter Wilkinson, 47, and his wife, Tracy, 50, lived in Stourbridge, in the English county of Westminster. They had two children, a daughter, Lydia, who studied biology at Bristol University, and a son, Pierce, who was 13. Despite the fact that Lydia was much older and studying at university, away from the family, the brother and sister communicated every day and shared an extremely close relationship. Tracy Wilkinson was a generous and compassionate woman. A former Latin American champion in ballroom dancing, she became a volunteer to work with elderly people and could talk to anyone to make them feel at ease. She often helped the homeless and never refused to assist those in need. Tracy was a housewife while her husband had his own business. One day in March 2016, Tracy went to the supermarket to do her weekly shopping. After leaving, she noticed a young man named Aaron Barley who was sleeping on the street in a cardboard box. Seeing how he suffered from his situation, Tracy felt sorry for him and decided to invite him to her home on Greyhound Lane. Aaron had dinner with the Wilkinson family, and Tracy decided to do everything in her power to help him get back on his feet. She took Aaron to the city council office, and with their help, he managed to find new housing in a hostel. From that moment, Tracy always tried to ensure that Aaron had hot and fresh food. Such care and concern were extremely rare for Aaron, as his life had been chaotic from the very beginning. Born in 1993 as a result of incest, his parents were his uncle and niece, with a 19-year age difference. His mother worked in a factory, and his father was an innkeeper. By the age of 10, Aaron became an orphan. His father died of cancer when he was 4, and 2 years later, his mother had a heart attack, leading him to spend his entire childhood in orphanages and various foster families. During this period, he faced violence. When Aaron was 13 years old, he is at the center of an investigation into a missing person case, and his photo was circulated in the media after he went missing, with 2 boys in Bromsgrove. Luckily, he was found and received proper medical care. As Aaron got older, he started sleeping on the streets. He also became addicted to banned substance and alcohol. However, it seemed that after meeting Tracy, his life started to improve. He appeared grateful for the help and support. Meanwhile, the Wilkinson family decided to do whatever it took to help him get through life is hard. One day during dinner with Wilkinson family, Aaron said that he just needed someone to give him a chance. Tracy herself has struggled with alcoholism in the past and was now volunteering at a rehab center that had helped her overcome it. She knew from her own experience how debilitating addiction could be and wanted to do everything she could to help him. Peter decided to get Aaron a job as a laborer at one of his businesses in Newport. For 5 months, it seemed that Aaron's life was getting better. He had a steady income, a roof over his head, and a family that truly cared about him. But soon, everything fell apart. In September, Aaron relapsed and started using illegal substances again. He explained that the reason was because his mother had recently passed away, but this was a complete lie. He became constantly drunk, stopped showing up for work on time, and exhibited aggression towards other employees. Peter decided to fire him. Everything ended peacefully, and the Wilkinson family lost contact with him. After only a couple of months, Peter found Aaron sleeping next to their house, covered in bruises, which indicated that he had been attacked. They decided to give Aaron another chance, helped him find a new place to live, and he earned money doing odd jobs for them. He spent Christmas with them and gave Tracy a card signed, "For the mother I never had." For the new year, Aaron had a new flat in Brierley Hill, and he now had a full-time job. A couple of times a week, he had dinner with the Wilkinson family, and it seemed that everything was getting better. Unfortunately, soon after, Aaron was fired from his job as a furniture polisher, and he lost his home. The Wilkinsons allowed him to stay with them again for 2 weeks until he found a job. On March 26, 2017, Lydia returned home from university and surprised her mother by hiding in the family Land Rover for Mother's Day. When Tracy opened the trunk and saw Lydia, they both cried tears of joy at their reunion. What a pity, Lydia's visit was brief, as she soon had to leave for Bristol to continue her studies. Just 4 days later, on March 30, 2017, at around 10:00 a.m., Lydia received a distressing call from her boyfriend informing her that a crime had occurred in her hometown. Upon reading the news, Lydia saw images of her house surrounded by police tape and emergency services. Alarmed, she immediately contacted the police to learn what had happened, and the news she received was horrifying. That day, Peter had taken his greyhound, Mendy, for their usual morning walk. Leaving Tracy and Pierce at home, he had invited Pierce to join him, but Pierce declined, saying he would walk later. When Peter returned home, he noticed the house was unusually quiet, and there was no tea on the kitchen table, a routine his wife usually followed. As Peter entered the house, a man wearing a balaclava attacked him from behind the kitchen wall, raising a knife over his head. Peter suffered 6 stab wounds, 2 in his back, 2 in his stomach, and 2 in his face. During the assault, the attacker screamed, "Die," and curse. Although the attacker was trying to conceal his identity with the mask, Peter instantly recognized him. After the first stab, Peter pleaded, "We are trying to help you." But he responded with increasing rage, then shouting again, "Die," as he delivered another blow to Peter's stomach. Following the attack, Aaron stole the Wilkinsons' Land Rover parked outside and drove away. Despite serious injuries, Peter managed to call 911 and made his way to the garden, collapsing on a chair. Emergency services arrived in just 7 minutes. 2 ambulances and 2 helicopters were dispatched to quickly take the victims to hospital. When the police and medical staff arrived, they encountered a horrific scene inside the house. Peter directed them to Tracy and Pierce to check on their well-being. Police comments: Tracy had been stabbed at least 17 times and was found naked in her bedroom under a duvet, indicating she had been attacked while she was sleeping. She was pronounced dead at the crime scene. Her son, Pierce, suffered 8 stab wounds, one of which was so severe that it nearly ruptured his back. He was found gasping for air on the floor. Right away, Peter and Pierce was rushed to Birmingham for medical attention, but sadly, Peter lost both his wife and son. After police tracked the Wilkinson family's car, they quickly located Aaron. So, he was quickly apprehended. Why? A bloody knife wrapped in a wet shirt was also discovered in the car. For Lydia, the unfolding nightmare was unimaginable. She had planned to return home the following day to choose a dress for the university ball and had promised Pierce she would pick him up from school. Now, all those plans would never come to fruition. As soon as she arrived in her hometown, she went directly to her father before his life-saving surgery. Seeing him in the hospital, surrounded by medical equipment and tubes, was heartbreaking. While Peter fought for his life, Lydia had the painful task of identifying the bodies of her younger brother and mother. Lydia recalled, "I went into the house and sat with my mom and brother. I told them I was sorry I couldn't protect them and stroked their hair. I decided to stay there for a while because I knew it would be the last time I would see them." After the doctor's efforts, Peter survived and spent a total of 11 days in the hospital, 6 of which were in intensive care. The community in Stonebridge was shocked by such a horrific event in their town. In a show of respect, flowers were placed around Wilkinson's house. Many people came to express their sorrow. Meanwhile, the police obtained surveillance camera footage from Wilkinson's house, revealing a disturbing sequence of events. The footage showed Aaron climbing over the fence into the garden behind the house. He had been hiding in the garden shed all night after failing to break into the house. In the morning, he waited for Peter to leave for his usual walk, then crawled into the house on all fours to avoid detection. Once inside, he put on a balaclava to conceal his identity, took 2 knives from the kitchen, and went upstairs. There, he brutally stabbed Tracy multiple times in her bed and did the same to Pierce. After the attack, he hid to waiting for Peter to return. After the murder, Aaron showed no remorse. He told a police officer, "I stabbed 3 people. I didn't even bother to take any of you. He also mentioned to the police officer that he had chopped them all up and insisted he wouldn't require a lawyer. Additionally, Aaron declined to take a toxicology test that could have established if he was under the influence of banned substance that morning. He also refused to explain his motives. While in custody, he boasted about killing a mother and her son and expressed satisfaction that they were dead. His only regret was failing to kill Peter. One uncertainty is why he committed this crime. Less than a week before the murder, the Wilkinson family ended their contract with Aaron's phone service because he hadn't contacted them for 3 weeks. Tracy had also mentioned to friends that she saw Aaron peering over their garden fence and had wished for his disappearance from their lives. Investigators said, Aaron has a long history of violent and antisocial behavior. At the age of 11, he was abandoned by his foster family because of his aggressive actions towards other children. As he grew older, his violence escalated, particularly towards residents in the nursing home where he lived, and he claimed to be very disturbed. He frequently got into fights and even stole a staff member's car. At one point, he made a list of people he wanted to kill. Aaron has 21 prior convictions, the first occurring when he was just 12 years old for causing serious injury. His other offenses include assaulting a police officer, using illegal banned substance, and possessing illegal weapons. He once attacked his ex-girlfriend with a piece of wood, hitting her 50 times, and attempted to stab her after she broke the wood in half. For this assault, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison at the age of 18. Volunteers at the rehabilitation center where Aaron was held reported that he expressed a desire to kill someone with a knife. They also noted that he had 2 main goals: to kill a prison officer and to kill a police officer. However, his comments were largely dismissed since they believed he made these statements while under the influence of illegal banned substance. Before, he attended a special school, but his social interactions were limited, as everyone who knew him avoided him. Additionally, a police report was filed against him after his former foster guardian became alarmed by his Facebook posts. In one of these posts, he threatened his former family, with whom he claimed he hadn't spoken in years, and expressed a desire for specialized help, warning that he might commit mass murder if he didn't receive it. In February 2017, just a month before he murdered the Wilkinson family, he met with a project employee for support. This employee concluded that Aaron sought to manipulate the people around him and to have absolute control over them, calculating every step he took. In one of his text messages, Aaron wrote that he was a beast, adding, "Stay a beast, change the victim." On Wednesday, June 7, 2017, Pierce and Tracy Wilkinson's funeral was held at St. Mary's Church. Lydia and Peter decided to bury both of their loved ones in the same coffin. The priest who presided over the ceremony was moved to say, "You may be surprised to see only one coffin, but they are forever inseparable, just as they were together when they were alive." On the first day of his trial at Birmingham Crown Court, Aaron pleaded guilty to 2 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. As the judge read the charges against him, Aaron rocked back and forth in the dock and shouted, "I did what I did. I don't have to stand here and lie." Psychiatric evaluations found no grounds for mitigating Aaron Barley's guilt. Prosecutor Kareem Khalil described Aaron as deceitful and manipulative. One of Aaron's former caregivers noted that he could be sensitive and caring, but he could also be cruel and threatening. A former resident of the nursing home where Aaron lived said that, aside from anger, he rarely showed any emotion. They never saw Aaron cry and noted that he rarely seemed affected by anything that happened around him. They observed that Aaron was the type of person who could witness terrible things happening and still stand still, not crying, not worrying. He seemed physically present, but completely detached emotionally. Aaron's attorney argued that Aaron's childhood was unstable, preventing him from staying in one place for long. He claimed that Aaron had borderline personality disorder and felt abandoned by his family. However, this diagnosis was never confirmed because it was widely acknowledged that the Wilkinson family had treated him with exceptional kindness. In court, Lydia Wilkinson confronted Aaron, stating, "My parents helped you, and you repay them with emotional suffering. You ruined lives and took half of my family away. I have become a shadow of my former self. Sometimes I wake up wishing I wasn't here. What did they do to deserve such a fate?" She also expressed that she would never forgive Aaron for his actions. After her statement, it appeared that Aaron began to cry and softly said, "And I'm very sorry." The judge commended Lydia for her courage and maturity, noting that she had shown strength beyond her years. However, he pointed out that Lydia was struggling with anxiety attacks and could no longer be left alone. Peter, who also testified, expressed confusion about Aaron's actions, saying, "We have no explanation for what he did. He chose to take out his frustrations on the people who cared for him. I wish I had never met him. I wish my wife hadn't seen him in the cardboard box." Aaron Barley was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 30 years before he would be eligible for parole. While the judge gave him this opportunity, she also warned him that Aaron might never be released, depending entirely on his behavior and rehabilitation while serving his sentence. However, Aaron remained expressionless throughout the trial, showing no reaction. The three-judge panel then decided to increase the minimum sentence to 35 years, reflecting the severity of Aaron's crimes. Now, Aaron will only be eligible for parole after serving at least 35 years and proving that he is no longer a threat to society. Whether or not he will ever be free is a question that only time will tell. Peter and Lydia continued to live in their home on Greyhound Lane. Peter said, "This is our home, and we couldn't let him take anything else away from us. We love this house. It's like a family home that we built ourselves, and we love living here." They also received support from a local priest, who blessed each room in the house. Lydia returned to university with the hope of becoming a medical researcher. She said she wanted to continue the work her mother would do, helping and supporting others, and that it was important to her to focus her energy on making something positive out of the tragedy. Lydia raised £133,000 British pounds for Birmingham Children's Hospital, which fought so hard to save her brother's life. While the loss of Tracy and Pierce can never be replaced, but their legacy will live on through the children that Lydia's organizations have cared for. Hey detectives! Welcome back. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Shauna Nelson. Heather is a girl with a cheerful, sweet, and innocent personality. Her beauty was characterized by white skin, rosy lips, and dark hair, which captivated Ignacio, who affectionately called her his Snow White. When Ignacio asked her out on their first date, Heather was overjoyed. She eagerly shared the news with her roommates. Heather's friends were particularly thrilled for her, as she hadn't had much dating experience before, and they thought this could be the start of something special. Heather and Ignacio's bond grew stronger. Ignacio consistently showed his care and thoughtfulness by surprising Heather with her favorite flowers and coffee. His considerate nature made Heather feel loved and appreciated. After Ignacio graduated from the University of Northern Colorado, he decided to propose to Heather. She happily accepted his proposal. However, Heather made one condition clear: if Ignacio ever cheated on her, she would end their marriage immediately, regardless of any apologies or attempts to make amends. She would not tolerate infidelity in their relationship. After making her stance clear, Heather and Ignacio decided to get married within a year of their engagement. Their wedding was a beautiful and joyful celebration. Ignacio began working as a law enforcement officer at the Greeley, Colorado Police Department, while Heather worked as a supervisor at the local credit union. She quickly gained the admiration and respect of her colleagues and customers alike. They appreciated her exceptional ability to comfort credit union members during difficult times. A coworker described Heather as wonderful all the way around, reflecting her kind and caring nature. After 5 years of marriage, Heather and Ignacio welcomed their beautiful firstborn daughter, Victoria. Heather's world was filled with joy as she became a mother. Ignacio also proved to be an outstanding father. From the outside, their life seemed perfect. A picture of happiness and contentment. Heather's life took a big change in 1997 when her father suddenly passed away from a heart attack. Just a few days later, her mother received a devastating cancer diagnosis. Despite the immense grief, Heather remained committed to caring for her mother, selflessly dedicating herself to supporting she over the next several years until she passing in 2003. During this challenging period, Heather's husband, Ignacio, played a supportive role, caring for their daughter, Victoria, and helping with household responsibilities. However, as time passed, he began to develop an interest in a new woman, Shauna Nelson, a dispatcher at the Greeley Police Department. Shauna was already married to Ken, a Weld County Sheriff's deputy, and they had 2 children. The couple's marriage, however, was struggling. Ken believed their relationship problems began when she returned to work after giving birth to their second child. Initially, the connection between she and Ignacio was friendly. But it soon evolved into a flirtatious exchange of comments and playful banter, marks the beginning of an extramarital affair. Shauna's compliments had a profound effect on Ignacio, captivating him and sparking a deep attraction. As they spent more time together, their initially friendly interactions developed into a deep love affair. Ignacio's feelings for Shauna continued to intensify, transforming from casual flirting to a passionate and intimate bond. Despite being married, they couldn't resist their strong attraction to each other. As Ignacio and Shauna's secret relationship became the subject of local gossip, Heather remained unaware of the affair. No one was willing to inform her, resulting in the relationship between Ignacio and Shauna growing stronger, while Heather remained in the dark. Shauna soon discovered she was pregnant and she shared the news with Ignacio, but his reaction surprised her. Instead of being overjoyed, Ignacio questioned the paternity of the baby, wondering if it was his or her husband Ken's child. Shauna told Ignacio that her husband had a vasectomy after their second child, so Ken cannot be the father of the child she is carrying in her belly. However, Ignacio, knowing that his wife Heather would be furious if she found out about Shauna's pregnancy, Ignacio became anxious. He didn't want the baby, and he desperately looked for a way out. Shauna agreed with Ignacio's plan, and he convinced her to have an abortion. He then drove her to the clinic for the procedure. Years passed, and Heather remained unaware of her husband's affair with Shauna. However, Shauna grew impatient and eventually decided to confront Heather. One day, Shauna and her friend Michelle Moore followed Heather to the grocery store, keeping a safe distance as they observed her. Heather, still unaware of their emergence, talked to a friend on the phone. Shauna eventually approached Heather and started yelling insults and accusations at her. Heather was deeply shaken after a disturbing encounter with Shauna at the grocery store. She recognized Shauna as her husband Ignacio's co-worker from the police department, whom she had met at several work Christmas parties. Heather asked Ignacio why Shauna, who had always been friendly to her, would suddenly lash out with hurtful words. Ignacio explained that Shauna had developed a crush on him, but assured Heather that she had nothing to worry about. Ignacio stepped in to address the issue, telling Shauna to leave Heather alone. He spoke to Shauna directly, but she became angry with him. However, Ignacio's intervention failed to stop Shauna's harassment, as she continued to bother Heather. Shauna once arrived unexpectedly at Heather and Ignacio's home, demanding to see Ignacio. Heather attempts to brush off the suspicion of an improper relationship between her husband and Shauna, his co-worker, but she can't shake the feeling that something is wrong. Unbeknownst to Heather, Shauna had confided in a colleague at the county dispatch center about her affair with Ignacio. Shauna claims to be deeply in love with Ignacio. saying she felt more strongly for him than for anyone else she had ever met. However, she also expressed her frustration that Heather stood in the way of their relationship. Shauna revealed to her supervisor that she would often visit the shooting range to manage her frustrations. While target shooting, Shauna would imagine that the targets were Heather. Meanwhile, Shauna's husband, Ken, remained unaware that his wife had been having an affair with Ignacio for years, until he discovered a diary detailing her relationship. Despite this, Ken chose to stay in the marriage for the sake of their children, rather than leaving Shauna after learning of her infidelity. Shauna was aware that she was not the only woman in Ignacio's life. He was having an affair with another woman, and this realization led Shauna to closely monitor his actions. Determined to be the only woman he was involved with, she threatened to tell Heather everything if he ever left her. As time passed, Shauna's fixation on Ignacio grew stronger. In an attempt to cement her place in his life, Shauna got a tattoo of his family name on her leg in July 2005. Her obsession, however, soon turned into an unhealthy fixation that led to her stalking him. Whenever Heather and Ignacio took their daughter, Victoria, out to a restaurant, Shauna and her family would coincidentally show up. Ignacio noticed the alarming shift in Shauna's behavior but chose to continue their illicit relationship despite his growing unease. When Shauna discovered she was pregnant with Ignacio's child for the second time, she immediately informed him she intended to keep the baby. Shauna gave birth to their son, Christian, in March 2006. However, due to Ignacio's wife being unaware of the situation, Ken proposed a solution. He would raise Christian as his own, provided Shauna remained his wife. Shauna agreed to the arrangement. In the summer of 2006, a woman approached Heather with unexpected news. Shauna Nelson had given birth to Ignacio's child. Heather was stunned and confused by this revelation. Upon returning home, Heather confronted her husband, Ignacio, about the child, seeking answers. Ignacio attempted to conceal his affair with Shauna, lying to his wife once again. Heather maintained her trust in Ignacio until one night in December 2006, when she woke up to find him gone. As she waited for his return, she became increasingly anxious. When Ignacio finally came back home, Heather confronted him immediately. Unlike his past responses, Ignacio chose to be honest this time. He confessed to spending the night with Shauna and revealed that the affair had been ongoing for years. He also shared that Shauna had been pregnant with his child twice and had recently given birth to their son. Following Ignacio's confession, Heather took the action she had previously threatened. She ended their relationship and asked him to leave the house. However, her deep-seated desire to keep her family together led her to reconsider and call Ignacio the next day. Despite her initial shock, anger, and skepticism, Heather's priority was keeping her family intact. She feared that ending the relationship would have a negative impact on their daughter Victoria, forcing her daughter to grow up in a household with divorced parents. Heather had a conversation with Ignacio about their feelings for each other. Heather lets him know that she still loves him, and she believes he does too. Heather wanted to save their marriage and made it clear that she did not plan to file for divorce. However, she also made it clear that she was not ready to immediately reconcile. Before considering reconciling, Heather presented Ignacio with several requirements. First, she asked him to take an STD test to ensure his health. Additionally, Heather also suggested that they attend counseling together to help them work through the difficulties of repairing the relationship and working through any issues that led to his affair. She asked Ignacio to relinquish his father rights to Shauna's baby, and she wanted him to end his relationship with Shauna altogether. Ignacio, determined to save his marriage, accepted all the conditions Heather set in order. He took responsibility for his wrongdoing and was willing to make things right. As part of the agreement, Ignacio called Shauna and ended their affair. Heather was present and listened to the entire conversation. Shortly after Ignacio hung up the phone, Heather received a text message on her cell phone. The message included a photo of Shauna and Ignacio's son, Christian, with the caption, "IGS Flesh and Blood," beneath it. Shauna was furious about the sudden end to her relationship with Ignacio, who chose to stay with Heather instead. Feeling betrayed and abandoned, her anger intensified. In response, Shauna began publicly talking about suing Ignacio for Christian's financial support in early 2007. Ignacio and Heather were working to repair their marriage after his infidelity. Despite their challenges, the couple was determined to move forward. However, Ignacio's former mistress, Shauna, continued to harass Heather, making reconciliation difficult. Shauna's behavior became more and more aggressive, prompting Ignacio and Heather to take action. To protect Heather's car from potential damage by Shauna, they started parking it in the garage. They also sought help from a lawyer, who sent Shauna a formal notice requiring her to stay away from Ignacio, Heather, and their daughter, Victoria. The notice clearly stated that Shauna was to stop harassing and intimidating the family but she ignored the warning. Instead, she persisted in sending Heather malicious messages via text, email, and voicemail to intimidate and provoke Heather. On January 23, 2007, at around 6 p.m., Heather was walking out of her workplace at the credit union. It was just after 6 p.m. As she walked out of the building with her co-workers into the dark parking lot, she was looking forward to a quiet night at home with her daughter. But her evening took a terrifying turn when a person dressed in black and wearing a Halloween mask approached the group, aiming a gun directly at Heather. The gunman appeared to be targeting Heather specifically, and as others in the group tried to seek cover, the gunman ordered Heather to kneel down and pointed the gun at her head. Right before pulling the trigger, the gunman expressed a personal vendetta, saying, "You ruined my life," and then shot Heather twice at close range. The gunshot wounds were fatal and inflicted in an execution-style manner. After shooting Heather, the gunman quickly escaped in a nearby red pickup truck. Meanwhile, Heather's co-workers and other witnesses immediately called 911 for help. Minutes later, paramedics arrived at the scene, but unfortunately, Heather did not make it. Due to the severity of the head injuries, Heather was pronounced dead at the scene. When police officers arrived at the crime scene, a parking lot, they were shocked to discover that the shooting victim was Heather, the wife of their co-worker Ignacio. Recognizing the victim, the officers immediately notified Ignacio and instructed him to go to the hospital. Upon arrival, Ignacio rushed through the hospital hallways to reach Heather's trauma room, but he was stopped by a doctor who delivered heart-wrenching news: Heather had passed away. The news was devastating for Ignacio, and he was now faced with the difficult task of informing their 9-year-old daughter, Victoria, about her mother's passing. As the investigation continued, witnesses at the crime scene shared their accounts of the events. One witness reported seeing the shooter suddenly appear and then flee in a red pickup truck, while another suggested that the shooter might have been a woman, based on their running style. Shauna Nelson has become the prime suspect in the investigation, linked to Heather's harassment. It was also mentioned that Shauna may have had a motive for the shooting, because she had an affair with Ignacio. The police officers at the crime scene were already familiar with Shauna and her husband, Ken, a police officer. What drew their attention was the fact that Ken owned a car similar to the one used by the shooter. As the evidence against Shauna grew, police sent out an alert to all units, focusing on Shauna and the red pickup truck she was driving. Ken was on duty that night and was driving patrol car when he received a radio alert about his wife and vehicle. He quickly began looking for his wife. 20 minutes later, he found her driving his vehicle close to their home. She explained that she had been out running errands, but he became suspicious when he noticed that she wasn't wearing shoes, which seemed unusual considering it was January in Colorado. It will be very cold. What further raised Ken's suspicions was that Shauna was wearing his clothing, including his socks, underwear and pants. After stopping Shauna, he called for assistance and the police soon arrived to take her into custody. The authorities then launched an investigation to determine if Shauna had any involvement in Heather's murder. Investigators made several key proof in their investigation. They found a pair of shoes with Shauna's DNA near the crime scene, less than 1,000 feet away. In the parking lot where Heather was shot, they recovered 2 shell casings from a .40 caliber Glock Model 22, the same type of gun used by Ken for his job. This new evidence strengthened the case against Shauna. The investigation also turned up a Halloween mask hidden under the seat of Ken's red pickup truck. The mask closely resembled the one worn by the suspect in the shooting of Heather. At Shauna's home, investigators found a bathtub filled and ready for use, suggesting that Shauna may have planned to wash off any blood after the crime. After Shauna's arrest, her clothing and hands were tested for gunshot residue. The results were positive, showing that she had recently been around a gun. With this new evidence, Shauna was eventually charged with first-degree murder. Despite matching shell casings from the murder weapon, the actual gun used to kill Heather was never recovered. The reason for this was partly due to the actions of Ken, who stopped Shauna after the murder but failed to detain her. As a result, Ken was charged with destruction of evidence and abetting first-degree murder. During her police interrogation, Shauna provided an alibi for her whereabouts at the time of the murder. She explained that she had put on some of her husband's dirty clothes from the laundry basket, which is why she was wearing them. Shauna claimed she went to the store, realized she forgot her wallet, and then drove back home. However, when questioned about Heather's murder, Shauna denied any involvement or knowledge of the crime. Ignacio was also questioned by the police but was eventually cleared of suspicion in February 2008. Shauna's trial for the murder of Heather began, with Shauna pleading not guilty to the charges. The prosecution argued that Shauna's fixation with Ignacio, a married police officer, was the primary motivation behind her murder of Heather, and that this was not Shauna's first affair with a married officer. The state negotiated a deal with Michelle Moore, a key witness and Shauna's former best friend. Michelle often accompanied Shauna when she would intimidate and harass Heather. In exchange for a reduced sentence, Michelle agreed to testify against Shauna. During her testimony, Michelle made it clear how much Shauna disliked Heather and even confessed that she helped plan the murder. In contrast, Shauna took the stand in her own defense, strongly denying all allegations against her. Shauna specifically denied having conversations about her fantasies of killing Heather or picturing Heather in her mind during target practice with others. She also claimed to have had no involvement in the killing itself, stating she was on her way to a liquor store at the time of the shooting. As part of her defense, Shauna proposed an alternative explanation for Heather's murder. She suggested that Michelle might have killed Heather to make her happy. However, when Michelle was questioned further, she dismissed Shauna's claims. The prosecution alleged that Shauna dressed in her husband's clothes during the shooting to frame him for the crime. The state claimed that by killing Heather, Shauna and Ignacio would be able to start a new life together. After 5 hours of deliberation, the jury found Shauna guilty of first-degree murder. The judge addressed Shauna, stating that she deserved the sentence she received. Shauna's former friend, Michelle, was sentenced to 9 years in prison for her role in planning Heather's murder. Following Shauna's conviction, her husband Ken resigned from the police department, filed for divorce, and moved out of state with their children. However, he eventually returned to Colorado and expressed hope that their children would one day visit Shauna in prison. Despite the circumstances, Ken believed that Shauna was a caring and wonderful mother. Heather's family is relieved Shauna is in custody and they feel justice has been served. Her loved ones hope Shauna will spend the rest of her life reflecting on the suffering she caused Heather. Shauna's actions had dire consequences. She separated Heather from her loved ones. ultimately depriving the love, care, and nurturing that a mother would give to her daughter, Victoria. Unfortunately, when Victoria, 17 years old, she died in a car accident in 2015. Her vehicle crashed into a tree after she lost control, resulting in her untimely death. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of April Jones. On October 1st, 2012, April Jones, 5, was playing outside her home in the Bryn Aeg housing estate in West Wales. It was around 7 p.m. Normally, April's parents wouldn't let her play outside so late, but she had received excellent grades the day before, so they gave her more time to play. April played outside with her friends for about 20 minutes before heading home. However, she did not return home at 7 p.m., as scheduled. Her parents last saw her riding her bike and immediately began searching for her. They soon found her 7-year-old friend not far away, but April was nowhere to be found. April's friend told them that April had gotten into a car with a man wearing a green jacket, with blue eyes, brown hair, and a beard. A key detail was revealed by the young child, who showed intelligence beyond her years. She reported that April had gotten into the car on the driver's side. However, as the steering wheel is usually on the right in British cars, this would suggest that the car in question had a left-hand drive. Despite the time of night, the police were quick, arriving on the scene just 8 minutes after the 999 call was made. As search teams gathered, police interviewed anyone who knew April to gather information about her disappearance and to see if anything unusual had happened in the days leading up to her disappearance. They tried to piece together the events surrounding her disappearance. The family could not think of any information that would assist the police in their search. April had attended swimming lessons earlier that day and was allowed to play outside with friends when she returned home. However, April had only been missing for a short time, but it was late fall and it would soon be dark, making it very difficult to find her. News of the incident spread quickly through the neighborhood through word of mouth and social media. Hundreds of locals rushed out of their homes to help in any way they could. Despite their good intentions, this actually made the police's job more difficult. While they were grateful for the community's support, they still had to go door to door to find out if anyone had seen April or who might have kidnapped her. The problem was, with so many people out trying to help, most of the houses were empty, making it difficult for the police to gather information and conduct their investigation. The story quickly gained widespread national attention and attracted television crews and reporters from across the country to the small town. Police provided a 10:30 update to the public and media, expressing concern that they had still not found any evidence or leads of April. Police urged anyone who may have seen or known anything about April's disappearance to come forward immediately. April Jones was born on April 4, 2007. Despite a happy childhood, April faced a number of health problems in her early years due to being born 7 weeks premature. However, with medical care, she was able to overcome most of these problems and have a normal childhood. One condition that April has not overcome is cerebral palsy, a brain disorder caused by trauma during or shortly after birth, usually due to lack of oxygen to the brain. The condition affects April from the waist down. Fortunately, it is not too serious. However, the condition causes pain and difficulty with simple muscle movements. Even with a mild condition, she still needs careful care. The most worrying thing is that her kidnapper may not know about her small defect, which may not be important to them. On the evening of October 1st, the police released more details about April's disappearance. Specifically, she was last seen wearing a school polo shirt and purple jacket. More than 100 people, including local residents and volunteers from the UK, have gathered to assist the police in the search. Locals who are familiar with the area may be very helpful in locating her. Others have traveled from South Wales to assist. showing their desire to help find April. The search area near the town was vast and dangerous, spanning 60 square kilometers of mountains, waterfalls, gorges, dense forests, and uneven terrain. Severe weather conditions, including heavy rain and overcast skies, made the search even more difficult. To ensure their safety, police carefully organized volunteers into several search teams. For 8 hours, teams braved the weather and traversed the difficult Welsh countryside to find April. The outpouring of support from the volunteers was a testament to the compassion of the community and brought some comfort to April's family as they anxiously waited by the phone for news. Police initially banned the family from participating in the search, fearing they would be fined. As the situation became more desperate, with April still missing, the police issued a child rescue alert on October 2, 2012. This alert allowed the police to share vital details about April and her abductor with all UK police agencies. As a result, the entire nation learned of the case for the first time. 14 hours after April went missing, the media put enormous pressure on the police. They also raised questions about the police's handling of the investigation. It could be argued that the criticism of the police was unfair. Despite the harsh weather conditions, the police quickly organized search parties and searched for April throughout the night. Considering the circumstances, it is unlikely that they could have done more that night. After Inspector Andy John took over the investigation, he provided the public and the media with regular updates. He also erected barricades and directed officers to set up checkpoints. During the investigation, posters with April's picture were distributed in the hope that someone would come forward with information. Police received numerous reports from local residents and people in the surrounding areas. In reviewing these reports, one name was mentioned repeatedly: Mark Bridger. Several witnesses identified a local man named Mark as a potential suspect. He was known to drive a Land Rover, had blue eyes, and a short beard. He was also notably left-hand drive. Several witnesses reported seeing Mark or his vehicle in the area at the time of April's disappearance. Police tracked down Mark's last known address and made numerous attempts to contact him, but neither he nor April were found there. Mark notably had no criminal record. Although some residents claimed to have seen Mark during the first night search for April, it was difficult to confirm due to the large number of volunteers involved. Currently, the police are focused on locating him. Helicopters circled the area as police conducted a thorough search of all possible locations where he could have been. They learned that Mark had recently moved into a new house called Mount Pleasant. There was no sign of life to the police when they arrived. The house did not have any cars. They entered the house and called April's name, but she did not respond. At that time, it was unclear whether Mark had been hiding from the police. However, at 4:30 a.m., they issued a statement announcing his arrest. A police plane spotted him walking with his dog along a country road, not far from April's family home. He appeared to have tried to change his appearance by cutting his hair and shaving his beard. The helicopter guided the police patrol car to his location. When the police stopped him, the officers asked him his name, and he answered truthfully, without hesitation. They then asked, "Where is she?" Mark responded by explaining what had happened, saying, "It was an accident. I accidentally hit her with my car, and I don't know where she is." They then took him to the nearest police station in Aberystwyth. Meanwhile, in April's hometown, an extensive search operation was underway. Police units, K9 search teams, volunteers, and mountain rescuers scoured the Welsh countryside, searching every area thoroughly. Despite their tireless efforts and determination, April remained missing. Along with a hardworking, determined team of emergency services, hundreds of volunteers from across the country stayed up all night, slept for a few hours, and then resumed the search. The police received a huge response to their appeal for help, with over 600 people offering their support and suggesting potential search locations. This allowed the police to deploy a large team of volunteers who, with their local knowledge, were able to meticulously search over 20 separate areas. While the public can sometimes inadvertently hinder an investigation, local expertise is essential in remote locations like this, and the police need all the support they can get. At this point, the police have arrested Mark Bridger and are questioning him. During questioning, Mark admitted that he had been drinking and was in the area at the time of the incident. He saw two girls riding bicycles and remembered a dark-haired girl passing behind him. Mark admitted that he hit April with his car while he was intoxicated. Mark claimed that he never meant to hurt April, although he admitted that he knew he had made a mistake. According to him, he put her in his car because he believed she needed immediate hospital care. But when Mark saw, her lips turned purple. He realized that his actions had led to April's death. Mark even claimed to be friends with her parents. Although he was initially cooperative, his memory suddenly began to fail. He could not remember anything about what he had done to April's body. Although the police attempted to question him, Mark insisted that he had amnesia and could not provide any further information. The police intensified the interrogation and pressured Mark. It was clear that he was not being truthful. As a result, the police began to doubt whether April was really dead. The police decided to have Mark recount the events that happened the previous Tuesday, the day he was arrested. And they planned to use this opportunity to extract more information from him. When questioned, Mark said that after getting out of the car, he saw April underneath, which made him think that he had run over her. However, the police received information from a 7-year-old child who was with April. She said that April was fine and had voluntarily gotten into Mark's car. April even smiled. This information contradicted his testimony. Mark changed his tone, saying that he did not know that the police had a young witness who had witnessed the entire incident. However, this witness's testimony contradicted Mark's account, making him clearly upset. Despite his emotional state, Mark continued to stand his ground against various interrogation techniques. His testimony remained the same, and nothing changed. The police consulted Dr. Joe Sullivan, a leading expert on body language and criminal behavior. To gain a deeper understanding of the suspect and create an accurate psychological profile, Dr. Joe not only observed Mark's interviews but also visited his home. This thorough examination revealed surprising insights. Mark had an arsenal of knives, handcuffs, and handguns in his home, some hidden and others openly displayed. Dr. Joe described Mark as a daydreamer with a distorted view of reality, imagining himself as a Rambo-like character. This meant that he had difficulty separating his daydreams from the real world. However, Mark disagreed with Dr. Joe's assessment. Mark would not change his story now. Their only chance was for forensic experts to thoroughly search Mark's home. The search found small traces of blood in the bathroom, possibly from Mark bleeding while shaving. Police sent blood samples to the lab for analysis, a process that could take up to 24 hours to get results. Dr. Joe informed the police of his assessment of Mark. He was unlikely to feel empathy or guilt for his actions. He would therefore not respond to appeals to conscience or feel remorse. Therefore, the police should not expect Mark to show remorse, sympathy, or guilt when answering their questions. The police took Dr. Joe's advice to heart. After the police discovered sensitive and disturbing images of children on his laptop, Mark was immediately arrested. As a result, Mark began to suspect that the police knew more than they were letting on. 3 days after April went missing on Monday night, her parents received heartbreaking news on Thursday. The police had given up hope of finding April alive. With heavy hearts, her parents had to tell their children that the search for April was no longer a rescue mission but a murder investigation. And the family would have to accept the loss of their little sister. Meanwhile, the police had instructed the volunteers who had been searching for April to return home and let the professionals handle the situation. This decision was met with strong opposition from the volunteers who did not want to give up. Hundreds of volunteers, exhausted and frustrated, left the search site after finding nothing. On the fourth day of April's disappearance, police search teams combed the area for clues. According to forensic investigators, there was no evidence that Mark had killed April. And, importantly, there was not a shred of evidence that Mark's story was true. An examination of Mark's Land Rover revealed no signs of damage, no blood, no hair, and no skin. There was no evidence of injury to April. According to Mark's testimony, there should have been signs of injury to April, such as scratches on the vehicle or blood inside, but none were found. Mark attempted to downplay his involvement by claiming that he did not see any blood on April after her collision with his car. He asserted that despite being run over, she did not appear to have any visible open wounds. The lab then contacted the police on Friday at 6:15 p.m. with crucial evidence. They had compared DNA from April's toothbrush to blood found in Mark's bathroom, confirming that it was April's blood. Additionally, the collar of Mark's fleece jacket and jogging pants, which he had been wearing, also contained April's DNA. When police questioned him, the photos were discovered on his laptop. Mark claimed that he did not find the content attractive. Mark was shown photos depicting the exploitation and manipulation of minors in a sexually explicit manner. When confronted with his internet search history, Mark denied looking for illegal sites for personal gratification. By Saturday, Mark had been detained for 3.5 days. Police had a total of 96 hours to question him. As the time limit for questioning him was running out, the case was transferred to the Crown Prosecution Service, which will decide whether to proceed with prosecution. Police questioned Mark several times about the disturbing images found on his laptop. As the investigation continued, they struggled to find new ways to persuade him to reveal the truth. When asked if he wanted children, Mark replied that he did not want to be a father. The police then asked, "Did you masturbate to these pictures?" Mark denied it. Mark initially remained calm, but his demeanor began to collapse as the conversation progressed. He flew into a rage and began swearing, clearly upset that someone had suggested he was a pedophile. The case was then referred to the Crown Prosecution Service for further action. The Crown Prosecution Service eventually allowed the police to charge Mark Bridger with the abduction and murder of April Jones, just over an hour after Mark's final interview. When the charges were read to him, Mark showed no emotion or remorse. Over the next 2 weeks, forensic investigators searched Mark's home and found traces of blood that belonged to April. The fireplace was also searched, where a number of badly decomposed bones were discovered. However, due to their poor condition, it was not possible to determine for certain whether the bones belonged to April. A jury found Mark Bridger, 47, guilty on May 30, 2013, for the kidnapping and murder of April Jones. Sentenced Mark Bridger to life in prison without parole. After the trial, April Jones' body was never found. Although 17 bone fragments were discovered in Mark's home, none of them could be positively identified as April's. April Jones' death has left a permanent void in her family's hearts that will never be filled. While her family and friends are working to rebuild their lives, the pain of their loss will continue. A funeral was held in April's hometown on April 26, 2013. Hello, crime enthusiasts, are you ready for another chilling investigation? The case of Jody Sanderholm. Jody Sanderholm was born on September 26, 1987, in Arkansas City, Arkansas, to Brian and Cindy Sanderholm. She has 2 siblings, an older brother named Jason and an older sister named Jennifer, and is the 3rd child in the family. From an early age, Jody developed a passion for dance and excelled academically. She graduated as one of 4 valedictorians in her high school class. In high school, Jody's academic achievements included membership in the National Honor Society and recognition as a Kansas State Scholar and a Kansas Board of Regents Scholar. She also received the David Steinamitzy Outstanding Physics Student of the Year Award. In addition to her academic pursuits, Jody was an active member of the Arc City dance team for 4 years, serving as captain for 2 years. After graduating, Jody attended Cowley College, where she studied pre-med and was a member of the Cowley Tigerette dance team. In 2007, Arkansas City had a population of approximately 12,000. Many residents, including Jody's parents, considered it a safe and suitable place to live and raise children. On the morning of January 5, 2007, Jody drove to the college to attend dance practice that was scheduled to end at 10:45. She planned to return home afterward. However, when her mother, Cindy, tried to contact her on her cell phone several times after practice, Jody did not answer. This was out of character for Jody, who usually kept in touch with her family and answered the phone promptly. As a result, Cindy's anxiety increased and she left work early to go home and check on Jody. When Cindy arrived home, she immediately noticed that her daughter's car was not in front of the house, which made her even more worried because she knew that Jody should have returned from practice by now. Upon entering the house and looking around, Cindy realized that Jody had not returned. However, Jody's dance uniform was nowhere to be found. It was not in the washing machine or the dirty clothes hamper, although she usually washed it after practice. The bathroom was dry, which was unusual because Jody always showered after dance class. Further investigation revealed that Jody had not contacted her father or sister Jennifer as planned. She had an appointment at noon but did not show up. Her parents Cindy and Brian attempted to call Jody's friends to see if they had any information about her whereabouts, but their efforts were unsuccessful. None of her friends had seen her after her morning practice at the university. That evening, the college dance team was scheduled to perform at a basketball game with a routine choreographed by Jody. But Jody did not show up. When her parents, Cindy and Brian, were unable to reach her by 6 p.m., they decided to report her missing to the police. The sheriff's office quickly created posters with Jody's description, began investigating her last known location, and issued a comprehensive bulletin about the car she was traveling in. Police discovered that Jody had a boyfriend, Colby Wilson, whom she had been dating since high school. Cindy and Brian provided this information. Police contacted Colby by phone, and he explained that he had been visiting his brother in Texas for a few days. After verifying his alibi and confirming that he was in another state, the police eliminated him as a potential suspect. On January 6, the investigation took a new turn. Lori Leglider, Jody's longtime friend and dance partner from high school, shared key details with police. Lori and Jody both attended Cowley College, pursuing dance together. Lori reported that she left work at the Sirloin Stockade in Arkansas City around 10 p.m. on Tuesday, January 2nd, and saw a light blue car drive by the restaurant several times. As she left on her way home, she saw a car following her in her rearview mirror. Lori suspected something was wrong and decided to check to see if the car behind her was really following her, so she turned onto several different streets. However, the driver continued to follow her. Much to Lori's horror, she drove to the local police station and parked nearby, and hoped that the proximity to the police would deter the person from further harassing her. After stopping, she no longer saw the suspicious car and felt safer, so she headed home. However, when she saw the car again, Lori returned to the parking lot near the police station. This time, she waited in her car for a while before deciding to drive home. She later confessed to the police that she had the opportunity to report the incident to the police but hesitated, initially thinking that it might be someone else's silly prank. But it turned out not to be the case. On Friday, January 5th, the Tigerette dance group, which included Lori and Jody, was practicing at the university. As usual, Lori and Jody arrived at the same time and parked their cars close to each other. Lori saw the light blue car again. Moreover, she recognized the man behind the wheel. It was a local resident, Justin Thurber, 23. Lori did not know him but had seen him several times with his brother and friends. Lori and Jody left practice at the same time and planned to meet up later, but Jody never showed up to the meeting. Soon after, several members of the dance team revealed that they had also seen Justin near the university over the past week. He had been sitting in his car in the parking lot, just watching. In the 24 hours after Jody went missing, police conducted a thorough search of the city but were unable to find her car. The fields and wooded areas around Arkansas City made the search difficult. To aid in the search, a plane was brought in to scan the area from above. Police believed they had a chance to spot the car from the air. It was discovered that Jody's cell phone had last pinged from a cell tower near the Call Wildlife Refuge, a large wooded area along the Arkansas River. At this point in the investigation, Justin Thurber was identified as a person of potential interest in Jody's disappearance, according to information from Lori Legliner and other members of the dance group. It is important to note that despite his young age, Justin was already known to the police. 3 years earlier, in 2004, he had faced charges of possession of a controlled substance. Despite being on probation, he had not stayed out of trouble. Justin was arrested in October 2005 for theft and violating his probation. 3 months later, he was charged with disorderly conduct. Just 6 days before Jody went missing on December 31, 2006, Justin was arrested for petty theft and found in possession of narcotics. After posting $3,000 bail, he was released on New Year's Eve. However, he quickly returned to his old ways and on January 1, 2007, he impersonated a police officer and caused a public nuisance. The police came to arrest him, but Justin was instead taken to the hospital after complaining of chest pains. It is unclear why he was not arrested after being released from the hospital. One possible reason is that he has a relative who works for the Cowley County Police, but this is only speculation. On January 6, a police officer spotted Justin's light blue Cadillac parked outside his parents' home. The officer decided to speak with Justin and was invited inside by Justin's father. When asked about his whereabouts the previous day, Justin explained that he had driven to Winfield, a town 13 miles from Arkansas City, in the morning. There, he met a friend and 2 acquaintances of that friend, whom he did not know well. Justin claimed that the 4 of them drove around the countryside in one of the acquaintances' cars until it got stuck on a dirt road near Cedar Vale. Justin then allegedly walked 30 miles to Arkansas City but stopped after 6 hours due to fatigue. He called his father to pick him up, which his father confirmed, saying that he found Justin wet and dirty a few miles from Cali State Fishing Lake. Justin also told the police that his car, which had been left in Winfield, had been returned to him by friends. The police found Justin's story unconvincing but lacked enough evidence to charge him. So they left without taking further action. That evening, the police spoke with Alexis Schwartzel, who had just broken up with Justin after 3 years of dating. They asked her about the places she and Justin had been, and she specifically mentioned the Cole Wildlife Refuge in southeast Arkansas City. The police told Alexis that they were investigating the disappearance of Jody Sanderholm, to which she expressed great surprise. During the conversation, Alexis revealed a disturbing fact about Justin. She said that Justin had told her that he had started stalking Jody when she was 13 years old. He would often peek at Jody while she was swimming in the backyard pool. On some evenings, he even lurked outside her window, waiting for her to change her clothes. Alexis told police that she had broken up with Justin because of his abusive behavior, which had become increasingly disturbing. Specifically, she reported that during intimate moments, he would choke her to the point of unconsciousness. Furthermore, he had asked her to hit him, as this was the only way he could get aroused. As the investigation continued, police increasingly suspected that Justin might be involved in Jody's disappearance, despite the lack of concrete evidence. However, on the evening of January 6, Officer Eric Mata arrested Justin on charges unrelated to Jody's disappearance, revocation of bail and suspicion of criminal trespass. This decision was made after it was discovered that Justin had been on university property, where police believed he should not have been. Justin asked to speak with his attorney while police arrived at his parents' home with a search warrant. When they arrived, they took Justin's shoes that he had worn the day before when his father picked him up. The shoes were still wet and were drying on a towel. Justin's father told police that he had helped his son clean the mud off the shoes. Police also found the clothes Justin had been wearing at the time but could not use them as evidence because he had washed them. The next day, January 7th, searchers trained to identify human activity in rough terrain began their work at the Cole Wildlife Refuge. They found a shoe print that matched Justin's along with several smaller shoe prints in the area. However, as it got dark, they decided to call off the search and resume the next day. Some searchers on their way home passed the Cowley County fishing pond and stopped to investigate after learning that Justin was wet when his father picked him up. Their search led them to muddy tire tracks and shoe prints near a public restroom. They discovered a letter addressed to Jody's parents in a chemical restroom, dance shoes in another, and a pair of flip-flops. Police found several items, including Jody's driver's license and social security card in her purse, her black jumpsuit, and a tigerette jacket with her name on the front. They also discovered cut-off athletic shorts, a car floor mat, a car seat cushion, and a pair of sandals that matched the footprints found at the Cole Wildlife Sanctuary. After conducting a 2-day search around Cowley County Fishing Lake and the Cole Wildlife Sanctuary, experts with sonar equipment were brought in to survey the lake bottom. On January 9th, they discovered Jody's submerged car. Unfortunately, on the same day, Jody's body was also found at the Cole Wildlife Sanctuary, hidden under a pile of leaves, logs, and branches and without any clothing. Authorities discovered DNA evidence that linked Justin to both Jody's car and her body. Initially, police were concerned that water in the car would destroy any evidence, making the search more difficult. However, forensic experts eventually discovered a short hair in the car. Terry Melton, director of the Forensic DNA Laboratory, conducted a DNA test on the hair found on Jody's driver's seat and concluded that it was definitely Justin's. Barbara Leal, an employee of a private DNA testing company, tested samples taken from Jody's right bicep and right breast. She concluded that Justin could not be excluded from the list of participants. Although 99% of the population could be excluded. Investigations using cell tower data showed that Jody's phone and Justin's phone were in close proximity to each other on the day Jody went missing. This finding was confirmed by Jody's best friend, Lori Leglider, who claimed to have seen Justin in the university parking lot that day. Further evidence from the university's security camera footage supported Lori's story. The footage showed Justin in the parking lot at the same time as Jody's practice and leaving at the same time as her. Furthermore, the footage showed Justin following Jody in his light blue Cadillac. Additional evidence included letters addressed to Jody's parents, which were later found near the lake. Police suspect that Justin followed Jody home from a university and attacked her while she went to get the mail. He then pushed her into her car and drove away. A key piece of evidence supporting this theory was the discovery of shoe prints next to Jody's family mailbox that matched the soles of Justin's sneakers. In addition, police found footprints at the Cole Wildlife Refuge that matched Justin's shoes, as well as smaller shoe prints that were later identified as Jody's. Along the shore of the fishing lake, they discovered Jody's shoes and other belongings. Further analysis of the footprints in the reserve revealed that Justin and Jody's footprints were initially side by side, indicating that they had been walking together. However, at a certain point, Jody's footprints stopped, while Justin's continued deeper into the woods, indicating that he had been carrying her. Justin's footprints eventually led to the location where Jody's body was found. Justin claimed to have been with 3 people on the day Jody went missing, but when questioned, they all denied seeing him. This meant that Justin's story about his car getting stuck near Cedar Vale was a lie. To investigate further, the police took Justin to Cedar Vale, but he was unable to find the location where he claimed his car got stuck. Upon returning to the police station, Justin surprised the officers by agreeing to take a polygraph test. He also requested that his relative, Chad Monroe, an employee of the Cowley County Sheriff's Office, be present during questioning. The evidence gathered was enough for a grand jury to indict Justin, despite his claim of innocence. The judge set Justin's bail at $1 million. His defense team attempted to argue that he was mentally incompetent to stand trial, but they were unsuccessful in their efforts. Because Justin had a high school diploma and several college degrees. During the trial, the medical examiner who performed Jody's autopsy testified about the severe injuries she suffered. Based on the results of the autopsy, the medical examiner confirmed that Jody's final hours were extremely painful. She had bruises and abrasions all over her body and face, and the cause of her death was strangulation. The severity of the violent injuries Jody suffered was terrifying, showing the brutality of Justin's crimes. It can be said that Justin's actions were motivated by a sick desire. And he used a stick to commit the heinous crime at the Cole Wildlife Refuge. At the trial, 7 women, including Justin's ex-girlfriend, testified against him. They all claimed to have been stalked by Justin. One of the women worked with him and had a particularly terrifying experience. After seeing Justin waiting for her in the parking lot after work, she was too scared to walk alone to her car in the dark. As a result, she had to call the police to take her to her car. Prior to this incident, he had left a romantic gesture of a rose and a note in her car, expressing his interest in getting to know her better. In regards to Jody's disappearance, several witnesses reported seeing her car on January 5, 2007. Carrie Morris, a friend of Jody's, saw Jody that day in Arkansas City. Around noon, Carrie walked by Jody's car and saw Jody sitting in the passenger seat. The man driving the car appeared to be a large man. Carrie attempted to contact Jody on her cell phone but received no response. 2 witnesses reported seeing a vehicle similar to Jody's on a dirt road south of Arkansas City at approximately 3 p.m. One of the witnesses identified the driver as Justin. After a trial, the jury returned the unanimous verdict on February 17, 2009, finding Justin Thurbert guilty on all charges and recommending the death penalty. Anticipating a harsh sentence, Justin's attorney attempted to negotiate a plea bargain. The proposal included Justin pleading guilty in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. However, Jody's family objected to the deal. Ultimately, the judge reviewed the jury's decision and sentenced Justin to death by lethal injection in March 2009. In 2008, the state of Kansas signed the Jody Act, which included provisions that expanded police powers over stalking suspects and expanded the list of behaviors that could be considered stalking. After his sentencing, Justin Thurbert continued to appeal the court's decision through his attorneys. One of their arguments was that Justin was mentally incompetent. In 2018, the Kansas Supreme Court stayed Thurbert's death sentence, citing a U.S. Supreme Court ruling regarding executions. In August 2021, the Kansas Supreme Court rejected Justin's appeal of his death sentence, leaving Justin Thurbert's death sentence in place. Notably, no one has been executed since Kansas reinstated the death penalty in 1994. The last time someone was executed in Kansas was in 1965. Since then, 9 other people besides Justin have been sentenced to death, but none have been executed. The Kansas Department of Corrections says it has not executed anyone in a long time and currently has no timeline for any future executions. So even if Justin's death sentence is upheld, the likelihood of it being carried out is very low. Jennifer Aldridge, the sister of a victim, said it was surprising that Kansas reinstated the death penalty more than 20 years ago but still has no concrete plan for executions. She hopes that discussions about the issue will take place when the death penalty is reinstated. Justin Thurber, 39, is currently incarcerated at the maximum security El Dorado Correctional Facility in Butler County, Kansas. The cost of keeping a death row inmate on death row is enormous, with an annual price tag of nearly $49,000 per inmate in administrative segregation at El Dorado. In addition, taxpayers pay higher costs when prosecutors seek the death penalty. The cost to prosecute a death penalty case is about $395,000, compared to $100,000 without the death penalty. Jody's family continues to face hardship and frustration as they wait for justice for their daughter, Jody. The situation is made worse by taxes, which they feel only add to their pain. Family members expressed feelings of helplessness and anger as they watched their tax dollars being used to support the person responsible for their daughter's death. Brian Sanderholm, Jody's father, expressed his anguish at seeing his wages being garnished for taxes, knowing that some of that money was being used to fund the perpetrator's existence. Brian believes that the law should be enforced and that perpetrators deserve to be punished for their actions. Cindy posed a poignant question: if this happened to your child, what would you want to happen? Before she passed away unexpectedly on December 2, 2022, at the age of 63. The family's ongoing fight for justice is now made all the more bitter without Cindy's presence. Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Amy Widener. Amy Widener was born in 1973 into a large family. She has an older brother, John Paul, who is 1 year older than her, and two younger sisters, Tiny and Cassie, who are 1 and 4 years younger. Their mother, Gloria Widener, raised the children alone after divorcing her father, who was absent from their lives. The family lived in a house in Indianapolis. Amy often acted as her mother's maid, taking on responsibilities such as cooking, cleaning, and caring for her younger sisters. A diligent student, Amy aspired to become a teacher and was known for her bright, cheerful personality and charming smile. At the age of 14, Amy's life changed dramatically when she became pregnant. She was afraid to tell her mother and tried to hide her growing belly by wearing loose clothing. For more than 5 months, her family did not realize she was pregnant. However, as she approached her 6th month, keeping the secret became more difficult. Amy finally found the courage to tell her mother. She burst into tears and said, "Mommy, I don't want you to hate me." Her mother, Gloria, was shocked but held her daughter close, comforting her despite feeling overwhelmed and uncertain about the future. "I was so shocked, I couldn't believe it. I thought it was the worst thing that could have happened to me." Amy Widener's child was born to Tony Abercrombie, a 20-year-old friend of her brother. Their relationship was kept secret and no one in the family knew about their intimate relationship. When Amy's mother, Gloria, learned of her daughter's pregnancy, she took immediate action. She banned all contact between Amy and Tony and ordered Amy to completely cut ties with the father of her unborn child, setting strict rules for her future relationships. On October 25, 1987, Amy became a mother when she gave birth to her daughter Emily. Remarkably, just 6 days later, Amy returned to school, balancing her motherhood and academic responsibilities. Gloria Widener understood the importance of education to Amy's future and was always supportive and caring to help Amy with her studies. She also recognized Amy's need for a normal teenage life and time with her friends. Despite the challenges of motherhood, Amy was determined to study, receiving praise from her teachers for her hard work and dedication. Amy's family adapted well to having Emily in their lives and shared the responsibility of caring for her. Over time, things seemed to improve, especially for Amy, who was overcoming her challenges. Just when they felt stable, things took an unexpected turn. On November 13, 1989, 16-year-old Amy Widener woke up with a severe sore throat and decided to stay home from school with her 2-year-old daughter Emily. When her mother, Gloria, offered to take Emily to a babysitter, Amy decided to keep her daughter with her. After the family had breakfast, they parted ways for the day. Gloria went to work, while Amy's siblings went to school, leaving Amy and Emily at home. When Gloria could not reach Amy by phone at 9:30 a.m. and several hours later, she became concerned. She asked a neighbor to check on them. The neighbor reported that the house was quiet and unresponsive, prompting Gloria to leave work and rush home. When she arrived, she found Emily sitting on the stairs and called Amy, but there was no answer. Gloria entered Amy's bedroom. The situation in Amy's bedroom was both tragic and shocking. Amy was found dead and naked on the bed, with a lot of blood around her. Gloria called 911 in a panic. When the police arrived, they conducted a thorough search of Amy's house. At first, they suspected a break-in. They found that several stereo devices and a graphic equalizer, owned by Amy's brother, John Paul, were missing. Additionally, a piggy bank in Amy's room, a glass jar containing about $50 for school, was also missing. There was no sign of forced entry. The perpetrator may have entered through an unlocked back door or front door, or it was likely that Amy herself opened it. Key evidence was found in Amy's room: a bloody handprint on the wall and several hairs, both from her body and head, that were likely from her attacker. The medical examiner determined that Amy Widener had been hit in the head with a sharp object, sexually assaulted, and finally strangled. It is disturbing to think that Amy's 2-year-old daughter, Emily, may have witnessed these tragic events. Fortunately, she was found safe and unharmed. The police realized that Emily, although only 2 years old, might have valuable information. To help her feel comfortable, they used finger puppets while gently asking her questions about what she remembered. During this interaction, Emily, who was active in the room, only said that her mother seemed very angry that day. To collect evidence, the police collected the attacker's bloody fingerprints. They also collected the victim's clothes and bed linens from the crime scene to assist in the investigation of this tragic event. During the investigation of Amy's case, the police conducted inquiries among family, friends, and nearby residents. John Paul, Amy's 17-year-old brother, was also questioned by the police. However, he had a credible alibi and no evidence linked him to the incident. Tony Abier, Amy's ex-boyfriend and Emily's father, was also questioned. He expressed his deep love for Amy and denied any intention to harm her, and provided a strong alibi for the day of the murder. Police also investigated Troy Jackson, who lived next door to Amy and knew about a stereo system that had been stolen on the day of the murder. Troy denied any involvement and had no visible injuries. He provided hair samples that did not match those found at the crime scene and was cleared of suspicion after passing a polygraph test. In addition to the 3 main witnesses, police also spoke to Amy's other friends, neighbors, and classmates. They collected fingerprints and hair samples from all of them, but none of them were considered suspicious. Amy Widener's funeral, which took place shortly after her death, drew large crowds to pay their respects. Her passing had a profound impact on the community. Police were present at the funeral, discreetly observing attendees as part of their investigation. One particularly touching moment was the display of a beloved photograph of Amy, in which she wore her favorite white floral turtleneck. It was in this precious garment that Amy, a young girl whose life ended too soon, was laid to rest. After the tragic loss, Amy's family still held out hope that her killer would be caught and brought to justice. However, As the days passed, weeks and months passed, no suspects emerged. After Amy's death, Gloria Widener took in her niece Emily, taking on the role of her mother. The grief and fear weighed heavily on Gloria, as she was constantly haunted by thoughts of the killer and worried about her family's safety. She never left her daughter home alone and lived in a constant state of anxiety as the attacker remained at large. Although Gloria considered moving to a safer home, financial constraints left them with no choice, forcing them to endure these difficult times in their current home. Amy's friends were also deeply affected by the tragedy, fearing that they could be the criminal's next target. They asked their parents to guard the house, even boarded up the windows to prevent a similar incident. One day, Gloria returned home, expecting to find her younger daughters home from school. Instead, she found only eerie silence. The house was strangely empty. She saw the girls' outdoor shoes in their usual place, which worried her. With each step upstairs, her mind raced with terrifying thoughts of what could have happened. By the time she reached the bedroom door, Gloria braced herself for the worst. When she entered the bedroom, she was relieved to find her daughters asleep. As time passed, Amy's daughter, Emily, grew up without the burden of memories of the tragic events involving her biological mother. She had no recollection of the police interviews or being told about her mother's death. However, the police would occasionally return to check on Amy's family, inadvertently reminding them of the pain of that terrible day. Gloria revealed that, at some point, the constant reminders of the past became too much for her to bear. All she wanted was for the police to stop reopening old wounds and for her family to find peace, because nothing could bring Amy back. 13 years after Amy Wagner was murdered in 2002, something unexpected happened. The Indianapolis Police Department received a call from a 29-year-old man who claimed he had a dream in which Amy spoke to him about her death. He shared some details about the murder, but most of what he said had already been reported in the newspaper. The police investigated the man, who was 16 at the time and lived across the street from Amy. They ran his fingerprints and DNA to see if he had any connection to the case, but found no matches, so he was released. Although his call did not provide any new evidence, it did lead police back to the cold case. In 2002, they reconnected with some of Amy's friends and acquaintances, especially those who had been in legal trouble over the years. However, despite these new efforts, the investigation hit a dead end again, leaving the case unsolved. In 2011, a Facebook group called Remembering Amy was created by Amy's friends, which sparked interest in her unsolved murder. The police officer working the cold case was unfamiliar with Facebook, so he asked his colleague, Officer Bill Carter, to print out information from the group. This assignment piqued Bill's interest in the case. Although his background was in non-homicide crimes, he felt motivated to review Amy's murder case file in his spare time. Bill thoroughly examined the case, which was more than 20 years old. He reviewed every detail in the file, reassessed the evidence, checked school attendance records from the day of the murder, and analyzed Amy's funeral attendance list. He entered the case information into a database and discovered leads that had been overlooked, including several friends of Amy's brother who had never been interviewed by police and whose DNA had not been collected. In an effort to find new leads, Bill contacted Amy's family and friends in 2011 to collect the names of people who might have information about the case. Bill began collecting DNA samples from people who had been overlooked in the original investigation in 1989. After the murder, police surveyed the neighborhood where Amy lived and recorded the names of residents. Bill returned to these records and the area to check to see if any residents were still living at their original addresses. His investigation led him to a woman who lived across the street from the murder scene and was a neighbor and friend of Amy's. She struggled to recall the names of the boys Amy had befriended. While she recalled most of the names that had already been identified and investigated, she also mentioned a name that Bill had never heard before, Rodney Dink. In 2012, Bill received permission from the Cold Case Unit to officially investigate the Amy Widener case. His first task was to find Rodney Dink to determine if he was a suspect. Amy's family knew Rodney well because he was friends with Amy's brother, John Paul. They often spent time together biking and fishing. When Bill asked John Paul about Rodney, he described him as a quiet, mostly private person who had never aroused suspicion. Bill then went to the home of Rodney Dink, 40, who lived with his mother near Amy's family. Rodney worked at an auto parts store and had been divorced for some time. He had an adult son with whom he had little contact. When Bill arrived at Rodney's home, his mother answered the door and told him that Rodney was at work. Bill left his business card, asking Rodney to call him when he got home. That evening, Rodney called Bill, who quickly arranged a meeting to discuss Amy's murder case. Rodney agreed to meet and invited Bill to his home. However, when Bill returned to Rodney's home, Rodney was missing. Bill looked into Rodney's criminal history and discovered he had been convicted of assault in 1991 and burglary in 1997. Rodney's fingerprints were in the database, so they compared them to the fingerprints found at Amy's house. The purpose of the comparison was to either link or clear Rodney of the crime. The results showed that Rodney's fingerprints matched the bloody fingerprints at the crime scene. After 23 years, a suspect was identified, but Rodney disappeared from the house, leading to a search for him. The investigation took a turn when Rodney's credit card activity showed that he had rented a car equipped with an OnStar tracking system. The police tracked the car to Indianapolis, where Rodney was hiding at a friend's house. When confronted by the police, Rodney threatened them with a knife, claiming his innocence. In the ensuing chaos, he injured himself and attempted to attack police, but was eventually subdued with a taser, handcuffed and taken to hospital. During a 2-day police interrogation that was filmed, Rodney admitted to killing Amy. He said he intended to break into the house and had not expected Amy to come home because she was sick. Rodney described how he entered through a sliding glass door and was surprised by Amy, who attacked him, causing him to panic. In his haste, he picked up the nearest object and hit her in the head, tragically killing her. Over the course of 2 days, he spoke of his vague memories of that day, explaining that it had been 23 years since the murder. His description of the events was vague. At one point, he mentioned going to Amy's house with someone he called Bag. However, Rodney struggled to recall specific details about this friend, including his appearance. He said that Bag waited outside Amy's house before going inside, where the two confronted Amy. When asked about Emily, Rodney said that he did not see her during the incident and was unaware of her presence or crying, not realizing that Emily had been nearby throughout the entire incident. During questioning, Rodney remained calm and respectful, showing none of the typical signs of a murderer. Due to the time that had passed since the crime, his DNA was collected and, as expected, matched semen found on Amy's bedsheets and blankets in 1989. In a rare moment of honesty, Rodney told police, "I always tried to be a good person, but I guess deep down inside I'm not." Both fingerprints and semen at the crime scene were confirmed to be his, and there was no evidence that anyone else was involved. Rodney's confession shocked Amy's family. The quiet and unassuming man was also a close friend and classmate of Amy's brother, John Paul, who lived across the street and frequently visited their home. With the horrific crime he had committed. In a surprising twist, Rodney even attended Amy's funeral, grieving with the others and sending condolences to Gloria Widener. Police Bill later found Rodney's name in the funeral book from the funeral. It wasn't until he reviewed the case that he remembered Rodney being mentioned in 2003 by Tony Abercrombie, Amy's ex-boyfriend and Emily's biological father, who noted Rodney's frequent visits to Amy's family. Bill believes that in 1989, Rodney was never considered a suspect or questioned at the time. While investigating Rodney's past in 2012, police discovered another disturbing fact. Rodney's biological son, Dylan Dink, had been imprisoned for a crime committed in 2009. At the age of 16, Dylan killed his mother, Mary McHenry, after claiming that he acted in response to her abuse and insults. He used a baseball bat to inflict the fatal wounds. Tragically, Mary died from her injuries, and Dylan turned 17 just days after the incident. This situation was very similar to Rodney's own past, as he was only 18 when he killed Amy. The similarities between father and son committing serious crimes at a young age made police nervous. Rodney had little involvement in Dylan's upbringing, having divorced Mary early on and leaving her to raise her son alone. However, he attended Dylan's trial in 2009. Dylan accepted a plea deal that resulted in a 20-year prison sentence, meaning he was scheduled to be released in 2029 when he would be 37. In the case of Amy Widener, Rodney initially claimed that Bag was his accomplice in the crime. However, just 10 days before his trial was set to begin in June 2013, 42-year-old Rodney changed his story and confessed to killing Amy himself, saying no one else was involved. Due to his confession and the evidence against him, Rodney was sentenced to 65 years in prison in 2013. After the case was over, Amy's family held a reunion with police officer Bill Carter to remember the 24 years without her. They released 24 balloons into the sky in her honor and expressed gratitude to Officer Bill for his essential contributions to the case. Officer Bill identified Rodney Dink as the perpetrator after only 12 days of investigation, essentially closing the case. In recognition of his exceptional efforts, Detective Bill Carter received an award from the Indianapolis Police Department in January 2014. Although he was offered a position in the Homicide Division, he decided to stay in his current role. Amy's daughter, Emily, grew up and graduated from the same high school her mother attended. She then went on to attend college. In search of more opportunities, she moved from Indianapolis to California. Amy's mother, Gloria, has publicly expressed her ongoing grief and daily remembrance of her daughter. She still lives in the house where the tragedy occurred, with Amy's room still decorated with pictures of her. The space now also welcomes Gloria's grandchildren for holiday visits, bringing joy and new life to a place once filled with sadness. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Laura Day. Laura Day was born in 1965 and lived in Orange, California at the age of 17. At the time, she was dating a 21-year-old college student named James Kendall. Although their relationship seemed to be going well, there was a problem. James was seeing other girls. Laura found out about this, and instead of ending the relationship, she decided to take revenge while hiding her true feelings. On May 11, 1982, James drove Laura home to Laguna Beach. After getting out of the pickup, she took a pistol from her car and shot James in the chest before shooting herself. James died at the scene, while Laura was shot in the shoulder and survived. Neighbors who heard the gunshots called 911, and emergency services arrived quickly. James died and Laura was taken to the hospital for treatment of her injuries. Initially, the police thought that a robbery might have taken place, based on Laura's story. However, they quickly doubted this idea when they found no signs of theft at the crime scene. The police discovered a note left by the Laura on a jeweler's business card, stating that she had intended to kill her boyfriend and then end her life, to escape responsibility for her actions. In reality, she was unable to carry out her plan to end her life. Instead, she shot herself in the shoulder to make it look like an attack on the couple. This is why she changed her story after she recovered. Laura was brought in for questioning by police. During the interview, her story changed several times. She tried to convince them that she was the victim of a robbery, but her testimony was confusing. She struggled to explain why she wrote a particular note or why James was shot with her gun. Eventually, under pressure, Laura confessed that she had committed the crime out of desperation, claiming that she had been a victim of violence and feared for her life. She described James as a cruel man who had abused her on a regular basis and had been having affairs with other girls, which had left her suffering. As the investigation continued, more details emerged. James had not only dated other girls, but had also intended to end their relationship. On the day of the murder, he had informed Laura of this. It seemed that she had anticipated this outcome. She had brought a gun, written a note, and shot him as part of her revenge plan. Laura was possessive and did not want to share him with anyone. After Laura was convicted of second-degree murder, she was sentenced to the California Department of Juvenile Welfare. While this option may seem milder than a typical adult prison sentence, being surrounded by other teenagers posed significant risks for her. Despite experiencing a few assaults, her time there was generally uneventful. Fortunately, Laura was released in 1987 after serving 5 years. While incarcerated, she pursued her education and earned a degree in psychology. After her release, it seemed that Laura had learned valuable lessons about discipline and reintegration into society. At first, this was true. In the early 1990s, she moved to Baltimore and worked as a nurse at a hospital. During this time, she also got married. However, she found the job too difficult and stressful, and the salary did not meet her expectations, leading her to quit and get a divorce. Club dancer, a job that suited her well. She earned good money with minimal effort and attracted a lot of attention due to her beauty. With many fans showering her with gifts, she became quite popular. However, her personal life was tumultuous. She got married twice more, but she did not get divorced after the first marriage and immediately entered into the second one. The competent authorities found out about this, and a case was opened against her. This led to a new trial in 1993. She faced charges, and the police suspected she was married to a third man as well. Ultimately, she received a 6-month suspended sentence. Unfortunately, this punishment did not deter her. Her reckless lifestyle continued to lead her into trouble. Just 2 years later, Laura was arrested again, this time for using a firearm. She shot up her own car and attempted to stage it as an accident. In an attempt to obtain insurance fraudulently, the scheme was uncovered. Additionally, the girl had stolen various items, including a ring valued at about $3,000. During the investigation, it was found that she had stolen everything from her neighbors. For her crimes of fraud and theft, she was sentenced to 7 years in prison. However, she only served 6 months before her sentence was overturned, and she was released. In 1997, Laura relocated to Corpus Christi, Texas, a city located on the Gulf Coast in the southern part of the state. During this time, she resumed her previous work as a dancer and became a well-known bikini model. She also expanded her activities by selling explicit images and adult content, which proved to be quite profitable. With her earnings, Laura was able to purchase a mansion by the ocean, fulfilling a lifelong dream. The woman remained dedicated to her ambitions and continuously pursued her happiness. During this time, she met a British man named Fieldy, and their romance blossomed quickly, leading to marriage. They soon welcomed a son, Cameron. Friends observed that she was a devoted mother who took Cameron to football games. Other mothers were wary of her, fearing she might attract their husbands. This concern was not entirely baseless. Although Laura and Fieldy's married life appeared happy, it was not as it seemed. Their family happiness was short-lived, and the marriage ended in the summer of 2011. At that time, Laura was working as a sales representative when she unexpectedly met a truck driver named David, who was 12 years younger than her. Laura's striking beauty caught the attention of all the men at her workplace. When Laura meets David, they begin talking and discover that both are unhappy in their marriages. David is married to Kelly, while Laura is bored with her boring husband, Fieldy. They begin to communicate regularly. Later, David informs Kelly that he is in love with someone else, which shocks her. Kelly accepts the situation and agrees to a divorce without trying to stop David's new relationship. Both Laura and David filed for divorce and soon moved in together. The couple spent most of their time together, with David's son, Taylor Searing, sometimes staying with them. Kelly, the boy's mother, was very wary of Laura, the woman who had broken up her marriage, and did not trust her. In order to build a relationship with Taylor and Kelly, Laura planned fun weekend activities for David and Taylor, such as baking cookies, going to the movies, and shopping. Through these efforts, Laura was able to bond with Taylor and improve her relationship with Kelly, David's ex-wife. Laura was very happy in her new marriage with David. They got married in August 2012 in Las Vegas. After the wedding, they moved into Laura's luxurious mansion, which had a large swimming pool. David worked as a truck driver and was often away from home. While Laura, who was not working at the time, enjoyed her days at home, enjoying her comfortable life. A tragic event occurred unexpectedly. On Friday, October 5, 2012, Laura picked Taylor up from school so he could spend the week with his father David. Laura had arranged this with his biological mother Kelly, who agreed to let her son stay with his father and spend time with him. On the way home, Taylor asked Laura if they could have a picnic at the beach. Laura agreed but wanted to feed the boy first, so they stopped at McDonald's for a snack. After lunch, they went home to pick up their clothes and beach gear before heading to the beach. However, when they arrived at the nearest beach, they found it very crowded. The parking lot was full and there were many people on the beach, making it noisy. Laura was surprised by the crowd, as it was still a weekday and not many people usually went to the beach at that time. Laura decided to drive further until she found a quieter, more suitable place. After choosing a good spot, they stopped and Laura let the child swim in the water. Normally, the boy wore a special life jacket, but that day he could not use it because his neck was injured and his collar was irritated. To avoid causing discomfort to the tailor, Laura decided to let him swim without a life jacket, as she believed it was safe. She watched him for a few minutes and was pleased with how well Taylor swam. He always practiced in the pool at her house. Feeling reassured, she let him swim without a life jacket. At first, everything went smoothly as she watched him from the shore. However, after only a few minutes, something pulled the boy under the water and he disappeared from sight. Taylor sank and did not come up to the surface. Laura noticed the situation, felt scared and jumped into the water to look for the boy. She searched for the boy but couldn't find him. Just a few feet from where he had sunk, he floated to the surface and began to drift with the waves. Laura spotted Taylor, swam to him and yelled to try to wake him, but he was unresponsive. She pulled him to shore, but he wasn't breathing and showed no signs of life. She tried to remove the water from his lungs, but in her panic she couldn't perform CPR, even though she knew how. She called 911 for help, but the doctors told her it would take too long to get there because the resort was far from the city. Realizing this, Laura decided to take matters into her own hands. She put the boy in the car, got in the driver's seat, and drove herself to the hospital. Laura quickly delivered Taylor to the hospital after covering about 20 kilometers in just 30 minutes. She was screaming for help as she arrived. Despite efforts to resuscitate him, it was too late, and Taylor was pronounced dead. He had already turned blue, and medical staff confirmed his death. The doctors reported the incident to the police as part of standard procedure. The police contacted David at work to inform him of the tragic news. He immediately rushed to the hospital. Police also informed Kelly of the tragedy, and she hurried to the hospital to gather more information. Upon her arrival, Kelly learned only that her son had drowned. the doctors could not provide further details. Laura stood nearby and revealed that she had not told anyone about taking Taylor to the beach and had decided to go at his request. She described the situation as a tragic accident. Kelly begins screaming in the hospital, accusing Laura of causing her son's death. Laura appears emotionless, showing that she does not care. The child's father, David, blames Kelly for not taking care of their son. To everyone's surprise, it is revealed that the boy was with Laura at the beach at the time of the incident. Kelly was especially upset that Laura had allowed the boy to swim without a life jacket, despite the strong waves that could be dangerous even for adults. The waves were indeed powerful, and there was a dangerous undercurrent that could easily sweep away a child or even an adult. Every responsible adult understands the risks of allowing children to swim in such conditions, so Kelly was left wondering why Laura had acted so recklessly. This negligence ultimately led to the tragic death of the child. The police continued their investigation and began to notice inconsistencies in Laura's account. First, they discovered that the hospital she chose was not the closest to the beach. The child could have been taken to a nearer hospital or to a fire station, where help was readily available. Laura claimed she hadn't considered the fire station, suggesting that panic might have clouded her judgment. Second, the police found it hard to believe that Laura, who had taken a nursing course and worked in a hospital, couldn't administer first aid to the boy. The operator had provided her with phone instructions that even a beginner could follow, and she should have been able to manage the situation. Instead, she chose to drive to a hospital 30 minutes away, despite knowing that brain damage can occur within 5 minutes without oxygen. Her decision seemed illogical under the circumstances. This situation raised many questions about Laura. Laura, David, and the child's mother, Kelly, were taken to the police station for questioning. During the interrogation, Laura displayed no emotion, showing no signs of regret for what had happened. She kept her head down and avoided making eye contact with the police while answering their questions. Her statements were confusing and lacked detail, revealing that her entire account was fabricated. When asked how deep the boy had gone when he disappeared under the water, she simply said he was cute and claimed he had been swept away by a wave, insisting it all happened very quickly. Her behavior was highly suspicious. The Kelly was heartbroken over the loss of her son and blamed Laura for not watching him. David was also deeply affected by the tragedy, and the tension between the parents intensified the sorrow. The loss of her son was devastating for Kelly, as he meant everything to her. It was revealed that Taylor's father wanted full custody of him, wanting to ensure they would always be together. David was actively working with lawyers to achieve this. The police considered this a possible motive for the murder. Laura, who was possessive and had previously given her son to her ex-husband to focus on her personal life, likely did not support her David's desire for full custody. She may have felt that the boy was a threat to her relationship with David and decided to remove that threat. The police further explored David's relationship with Laura by asking him about it. He responded that they seemed to get along well, at least from his perspective. However, he soon began searching for information about his wife online and uncovered troubling details about her past. She had shot her boyfriend, faced accusations of bigamy, and was involved in fraud, theft, and adult content. This revelation shocked him, making it feel as if he was learning about a completely different person. Unable to cope with the information, he confronted Laura, who reassured him that her past was not dangerous or malicious. She explained that her boyfriend had abused her, and she had acted in self-defense. Trusting her words, David decided not to take any action, believing she posed no threat. Consequently, he continued to leave her alone with their son, a decision that ultimately led to the Taylor's tragic death. Police reviewed Laura's extensive criminal history and were shocked. A woman with a past of murder might be capable of repeating such an act. After considering all aspects of the case, police concluded that her actions indicated a willful disregard for the child's safety and criminal negligence. Initially, she failed to inform her parents about her plans, which she should have done to seek their permission. Instead of stopping at a busy public beach, she chose a deserted area. She allowed her son to swim without a life jacket and did not keep an eye on him. When she eventually retrieved him from the water, she was unable to perform basic first aid and instead went to the hospital, which severely compromised the child's chances of survival. Given her medical training, she was fully aware of this. Laura Day was arrested and charged with capital murder. The investigation was ongoing. Meanwhile, a large-scale experiment was conducted using a dummy that matched the deceased child's parameters. However, the experiment did not yield the expected results. The body did not surface as Laura had claimed. This raised doubts about her story. Less than 24 hours after her arrest, she posted $50,000 bail for her release. She was released with restrictions, including a prohibition on being in places where children gather, as she was deemed a potential threat to their safety. At that time, her husband still believed in Laura's innocence and stood by her side. He was deeply affected by the tragedy and was considering moving to Florida with her once the charges were dropped, viewing the situation as a misunderstanding. Despite being restricted from leaving, Laura, the main suspect, acted as if nothing had happened. Just a few days later, she went shopping at a mall, attempting to disguise herself with a wig, but a police officer recognized her, and she could no longer escape scrutiny. On December 4, 2012, she was arrested again for violating her bail conditions. Laura maintained her innocence regarding all charges. The police were conducting a thorough investigation, gathering evidence piece by piece. A witness emerged, stating that there was no panic or urgency to save the boy that day. According to him, Laura calmly took the boy and left the beach with a satisfied expression, even waving goodbye and smiling cheerfully. In January 2013, at the trial, the main piece of evidence against Laura in Taylor's murder was the testimony of a witness. The witness described seeing a woman, presumably Laura, leaving the scene looking content and happy, rather than panicked and anxious. The prosecution argued that Laura's unusual decision to deviate from her usual routine of picking up her son with her husband showed that she had planned ahead. Taking the boy away from his mother earlier under the pretext of spending more time with his father, despite the fact that his father was at work and not present. Laura did not inform anyone about going to the beach. Instead, she chose a secluded spot where there weren't any people around and sent Taylor into the water without a life jacket, seemingly waiting for him to drown in the strong waves. After he was in trouble, she slowly pulled him out, confirmed he wasn't breathing, and failed to attempt any life-saving measures. Instead of waiting for the ambulance, which may have arrived before her, she drove to a distant hospital, wasting the precious final minutes of the child's life. It was only due to a witness who accidentally arrived at the beach while she was leaving and testified against her that Laura was held accountable for her actions. During the trial, several witnesses pointed to inconsistencies in Laura's testimony. For example, she initially mentioned that she and Taylor had stopped by the house to pick up their swimsuits before heading to the beach. However, it was later revealed that she had brought all of her swimsuits, suggesting that she had prepared for the trip in advance. This raised doubts about how she could have anticipated that the boy would invite her to the beach. Additionally, her decision to remove the boy's life jacket was unusual, as he usually swam with it on. Her explanation for this decision seemed implausible, and there were no signs of irritation or injury to Taylor's skin. It became clear that the boy had swum far from the shore, creating a safety risk even though he had the necessary skills. Laura, despite having basic first aid knowledge from her hospital experience, was unable to help the boy. This inability raised doubts about her intentions and whether her actions contributed to the child's death. The mistrust of Laura stemmed from her past conviction for murder and her history of appearing in crime reports. The prosecution argued that she had not learned from her time in prison, suggesting that jealousy, which motivated her previous crime, may have influenced her actions toward the tailor. The prosecutor suggested that jealousy over the boy was a motive for Laura's actions, arguing that she wanted her husband to focus all his attention on her rather than on his son. This was described as a cruel and selfish act driven by her possessiveness. In contrast, the defense pointed out that no one witnessed the boy's death, making it impossible to know exactly what happened and casting doubt on the prosecution's claims. A witness only saw Laura and the boy leaving the beach, and the autopsy revealed no signs of violent death on Taylor's body, suggesting that Laura did not drown him. Statistics indicate that approximately 800 children and teenagers in the United States die each year due to accidental drowning. The prosecution made a significant point about Laura's inability to perform first aid, which strengthened their case against her. Laura exhibited unusual behavior. She was anxious about being alone and often sought attention through her dramatic appearance. She was very impulsive and viewed other women as competition, which resulted in her having no female friends. Laura showed signs of extreme fear of being alone, both during and after the trial. At times, Laura perceived Kelly as a threat. Despite facing the possibility of life in prison, Laura did not appear overly concerned about her future. At one point, she asked her husband, David, if he loved her more than his ex-wife Kelly, which seemed inappropriate in such a situation. Laura seemed obsessed with being the central figure in David's life, viewing the child as a rival. While the child was alive, it would have been a link between Kelly and David, which may have hindered Laura's ambitions. This obsessive thinking may have led her to rationalize her choice to eliminate the child as a form of self-defense. In her mind, she was protecting her relationship with David. At first, David stood by his wife, Laura. However, as the investigation progressed and new evidence emerged, he came to believe that Laura intentionally killed their child. This realization prompted him to file for divorce, resulting in the end of their marriage. In June 2013, Laura Day was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without the chance of parole. Despite her conviction, Laura continues to assert her innocence. Although the prosecution presented strong arguments, the lack of direct evidence against her led some to question the court's decisions. Currently, even in prison, Laura remains hopeful. She has found a new partner during her incarceration and has begun a new relationship, despite knowing she will spend the rest of her life behind bars. Hi everyone, thanks for returning. Let's unravel another perplexing mystery. The case of Yingying Zhang. Yingying Zhang was a student from China who came to the USA after being invited by the University of Illinois. She and her fiancé from China were planning a wedding. Sadly, she never got the chance to wear her wedding dress, as she was killed just 6 weeks after her arrival in the USA. Born on December 21, 1990, Yingying was a Chinese ecology student who graduated from Beijing University with a master's degree in environmental engineering. Yingying is a smart and cheerful person. In April 2017, 26-year-old Yingying traveled to Champaign, Illinois in the USA, invited by the University of Illinois to study for a year in the plant-growing department of natural resources. She intended to pursue graduate studies afterward. In China, Yingying met her fiancé, Alenka. They were classmates and top students, having dated for several years. The couple planned to marry once she returned home. On June 9, 2017, Yingying was leaving school to meet a real estate agent to sign a lease. At 1:39 p.m., she texted the agent to confirm that she would arrive around 2:10 p.m. This was the last text she sent, and she never arrived. At 2:40 p.m., the real estate agent texted her to ask where she was, but received no response. The agent eventually left to meet another client. As hours went by and Yingying did not return, her friends became increasingly worried. She was supposed to return to campus after signing the contract, as she had no other plans for the day. Her friends repeatedly called and messaged her, but she did not reply. Even Alenka could not contact her. This situation was very alarming. In the evening, Inying still had not returned. Too worried, Inying's friends contacted the police and reported her missing. At first, the police thought she might be somewhere with her friends. However, after questioning all of her friends and finding no new information, along with no activity recorded on her bank cards or phone, they began a search. Her phone was turned off at 2:28 p.m. on the day she went missing and was never turned back on. The police searched the university campus, but no one saw Inying. A $10,000 reward was offered for information about Inying's location. After discovering she was missing, her parents and Alenka traveled to Illinois and raised the reward to $50,000 for any information that could lead to her return. Both her parents and Alenka joined the search efforts and committed to staying until they found she. The FBI joined the investigation. They tracked her phone, which had been detected at a bus stop close to the campus. Inying did not have a car and relied on public transportation, particularly buses. CCTV footage showed Inying boarding a bus at 1:35 p.m. She was supposed to transfer to another bus at 1:52 p.m. but missed it. Cameras then captured her walking to the next bus stop. While she was waiting, a black four-door Saturn Astra drove by, circled back, and stopped near her at around 2:03 p.m. After a brief conversation with the driver, Inying got into the car and left. This was the last time she was seen on surveillance cameras. The driver was the last person known to have seen her, but the license plate number was not shown on the footage. The FBI needs to determine who was driving the car. They found 18 black four-door Saturn Astras registered in the area. One notable feature of the car, as seen in surveillance footage, was the cracked rims. After examining all 18 cars, they identified one that matched the description and also had the same sunroof. The car belonged to 28-year-old Brent Christensen. Brent grew up in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, and married his high school sweetheart Michelle Zortman in 2011. 2 years later, the couple moved to Champaign, Illinois, where he entered graduate school at the University of Illinois and worked as a teaching assistant. He left graduate school in 2016. Brent was considered a family man and had no criminal record. When FBI agents asked Brent about his whereabouts, he couldn't remember, mentioning he might have been sleeping at home or playing video games. His wife, Michelle, who he said he had an open relationship with, was away with another man. Brent allowed the agents to search his apartment and car. They discovered that a section of the car's interior, near the front passenger door, had been cleaned thoroughly while the rest of the car was still dirty. This was odd because cars are usually cleaned completely unless there is a specific reason for cleaning only part of it. A quick inspection of the apartment did not reveal any clues, so the agents took Brent to the police station for more questioning. At first, Brent denied knowing Inying or being involved in her situation. However, when shown surveillance footage, he admitted that he had been passing by and seen a girl who looked very upset. He said that he stopped to help her and she said she was late for a meeting, so he offered her a ride, which she accepted. He claimed that after suddenly taking a wrong turn a few blocks later, Inying became frightened and tried to open the locked front passenger door. He then stopped to let her out. After she escaped from the car, he never saw her again. When the police and Agent Igor asked him for a more detailed description of Inying, but he had difficulty distinguishing people of Asian descent. As a result, he became a suspect. There was only circumstantial evidence against him, not enough to make an arrest, so the police had to release Brent. However, they decided to follow him, monitor his activities, and gather more evidence of his possible involvement in Inying's disappearance. They realized that Brand was the person they needed to investigate. The FBI seized his phone, computer, camera, and other digital devices for analysis. They soon discovered that Brent was hiding important information. In March 2017, he visited a psychologist and revealed during his sessions that he was obsessed with thoughts of murder and fascinated by serial killers. He claimed that he had learned how to kill without leaving any evidence to avoid detection. Brent also confided in the psychologist that his life was falling apart. He had started drinking regularly, and his wife Michelle, who was having an affair, had asked him for a divorce. Brent did not want to end the marriage. It was also revealed that Brent had met a woman named Gray Tora on a dating website. They began dating and met at his home. They agreed that Brent would take the dominant role in their relationship while Tora would be submissive. Brent even introduced Tora to his wife, who knew about their open relationship and that Tora was also seeing other men for intimate encounters. Police later discovered that his computer search history included terms like kidnapping, hygiene products, and how to track an iPhone. It appeared that he was searching for information on how to kidnap someone, disable phone tracking, clean up blood, and track a girl. However, this information was not enough to make an arrest. More evidence or a confession was needed from him. The FBI agent asked Tora, Brent's new girlfriend, to assist in the investigation, and she agreed to cooperate with the wiretap. On June 29th, Brent attended a memorial event for the missing Indian girl, where her family desperately begged for her return. During the event, Brent drank, smiled, and even leaned in to sing softly to Dash. Afterwards, he used the Notes app on his phone to write, "It's me. She's number 13. She's gone forever," and he drew the number 13 on his hand. This made Tora shiver. Tora felt uncomfortable listening to Brent's story, but he continued, seemingly trying to impress her. Brent had no idea that she was cooperating with the FBI and recording everything he said. Meanwhile, a drunken Brent revealed the grisly details of Inying's final moments, smiling as he spoke. He took off Inying's clothes and began doing various things to her. She endured everything. He tried to strangle her for 10 minutes but then let her go. She was still breathing, and he was shocked to learn that she was still alive. She fought harder than anyone he had ever met. She was not the only person he had murdered. Now, there were 13 victims. Brent told Tora that he first committed this crime when he was 19 years old. He dragged a corpse into the bathroom of his apartment and hit her over the head with a baseball bat. He then stabbed her in the neck and decapitated her. In the recording, he compared himself to his idol, Ted Bundy, and bragged that he had more victims than Jeffrey Dahmer and John Gacy. He boasted that he had attracted national attention. These recordings became crucial evidence against him. Brent was arrested the next day. His apartment was thoroughly searched with luminol, revealing a bloody handprint on the wall next to Brent's bed and in the bathroom. There was also blood on the passenger door of his car. A large bloodstain was found on his mattress, and a cadaver dog detected the scent of human remains in the bathroom. DNA from Inying's toothbrush was found on a baseball bat, mattress, carpet, and in the bathroom. Brent's GPS data confirmed that he was present at the crime scene at the time of the incident. Additionally, receipts for trash bags and cleaning products were found in his home, along with a large gym bag, likely used to discreetly transport the remains. That morning at 7:45 a.m., he bought a large bottle of cheap rum from a liquor store. When he got home, he drank heavily. Then drove around looking for victims while intoxicated. After a few hours, he spotted a student from the university, Emily Hogan, walking to a bus stop near the campus. He approached her and identified himself as an undercover police officer and asked her to get into his car for questioning. She refused and ran away. She later identified him and posted a warning on Facebook to warn others about the fake police in the area, which happened after the disappearance. After Emily rejected him, Brent sought out another victim and met a girl. He pretended to be a police officer and offered her a ride in his car. She believed him because he had a police badge, had a police radio, and drove a police car, so she got in. Once in the car, he drove home, confiscated her phone, and turned it off. Brent then tied her hands, took her to his apartment, raped and murdered her, and then dismembered her body. He bought cleaning supplies and attempted to clean both the house and the car, but investigators later discovered traces of blood hidden under the carpet and behind the baseboards. Brent claims the idea was spontaneous and unplanned. However, his computer search history suggests otherwise, suggesting he was prepared for it. Brent is charged with kidnapping, murder, and making false statements to a federal agent, and faces the death penalty. His trial began in June 2019. His lawyer argued that Brent had a difficult childhood, with his mother being an alcoholic and him not socializing with his siblings and lacking friends. During that time, he often contemplated ending his life and struggled with mental health issues, sleep problems, and substance abuse, which led him to seek help. His lawyer noted that Brent was not in a good mental state and was plagued by dark thoughts, especially after his wife mentioned divorce. This led to a downward spiral for him. At that moment, Brent was in the courtroom, wiping away tears. The attorney admitted Brent was guilty but asked the jury to give him a lenient sentence. During the trial, Brent's wife, Michelle, reported seeing a large gym bag and noted that Brent left with it on June 12. She said that there was no foul odor and that he easily threw the bag over his shoulder, leading her to believe that it could not have contained a body. It must have contained something light. However, she also acknowledged that the bag was large enough to hold a person and acknowledged that her husband could lift the weight of a girl. Michelle noticed new cleaning products in the house and stains on the carpet. Brent explained that he had a nosebleed, which caused the stains. So he purchased a cleaning product to try to clean the carpet. Despite the large stain, Michelle didn't find this suspicious. Calls from prison were recorded. During one call, Michelle told Brent that Tora had set him up. In court, Brent Christensen confessed to everything but didn't disclose the location of the bodies. On July 18, 2019, after 2 hours of deliberation, the jury found Brent guilty on all charges, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Later, Michelle relocated to another state and changed her last name to begin a new life. After the trial, Tora sought psychological help due to the traumatic experiences she had from hearing Brent's actions. A suicide note was discovered in Brent's cell, suggesting that he may have been planning to end his life or seek attention. He was then placed in solitary confinement and closely monitored. Although Brent claimed to have a 13th victim, no evidence of the existence of additional victims was ever found. He denied these allegations in court. The FBI analyzed 19 unsolved missing persons cases in Illinois and Wisconsin and submitted Brent's DNA for comparison, but no matches were found. It appears that Brent was just bragging to Tora and made up the story. Inying's family was not satisfied with the verdict. They felt that the killer deserved the death penalty. After learning that their daughter had been brutally murdered, all the parents wanted was to give Inying a proper burial. They were heartbroken to discover that their daughter's body would likely never be found. In their grief, they begged Brent to reveal the location of their daughter's remains. He told his lawyer that he had dismembered her body, put the pieces in 3 separate trash bags, and thrown them into a dumpster at his apartment complex. He also claimed that her phone, textbooks, and backpack were thrown into another dumpster, which was likely taken to a landfill. Police discovered that the trash at his apartment had been emptied 3 days after she went missing and the trash had been taken to a landfill. There, the trash had been compacted multiple times, mixed with other waste and scattered over a wide area, making it nearly impossible to find her remains. The only consolation for the family is that Brent will serve his sentence without parole, ensuring he cannot commit any more crimes. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Nicole Pitts. Nicole Pitts was born in late February 1973 and grew up in King County. She attended Eastern Washington College. Every summer, her family traveled to Seattle and spent much of their time at Lake Samash. Nicole had a close relationship with her mother, Gail, and had a good relationship with her father, Rod. In the 1990s, while working at a fitness club, she met her future husband, David. Their relationship quickly developed into a romantic relationship. After spending some time together, they married in 2002 in Maui, Hawaii. In 2005, the couple bought a condominium in Linwood, Washington, a place where they could enjoy their time together. At that time, Linwood was a quiet town with a population of fewer than 40,000 people. It featured narrow streets and many bars and restaurants, similar to their previous home. The young family quickly fell in love with the area. Nicole was outgoing and made friends easily. Within days of moving in, she had made many new friends. She is an animal lover and often walks her dog around the neighborhood or relaxes at home with her 2 cats. She cares for them as if they were her own children. Nicole's career was going well. After finishing school, she worked at a fitness club for a while before becoming a corporate manager at a mobile phone company. She lived close to where she worked. Nicole was an important member of the team because she easily connected with her colleagues and helped them solve problems. However, she faced challenges from an early age. She was introduced to alcohol as a teenager and eventually became an alcoholic. This started when her parents divorced, which left her feeling lost. Her mother, a flight attendant, was often away on business trips, so Nicole was often left in the care of her elderly grandmother, which led to her hanging out with the wrong crowd. Fortunately, Nicole's parents noticed their daughter's issue early on, and with the support of her family, she was able to overcome her bad habit. They attended Alcoholics Anonymous meetings together, where she received guidance, making her journey easier. However, her alcohol use had lasting effects, resulting in significant health problems. At age 21, Nicole was diagnosed with endometriosis and underwent 3 surgeries. Following these procedures, she was prescribed pain medication to control her chronic pain. By 2006, 32-year-old Nicole had been avoiding alcohol for 8 years. Despite this, she remained an active and valuable member of her Alcoholics Anonymous group. She attended every meeting, viewing them not just as a way to manage her own recovery, but also as an opportunity to support others in their struggles. Nicole understood the challenges of the fight against addiction. From a young age, she had a passion for cooking, which only grew stronger over time. She loved preparing a variety of dishes and often brought her homemade meals to work for her husband, David, who always appreciated her efforts. Nicole was very close to her mother and called her every day. In early 2006, she was excited about her upcoming 33rd birthday. However, just 2 days before her birthday, she unexpectedly missed an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in nearby Renton, surprising everyone. That night, David returned home late from work and went straight to bed, thinking Nicole would still be home. However, the next morning, he discovered that she had left, and he never saw her again. David tried calling Nicole to check on her, but she didn't answer his calls. He was worried that she might be upset because he hadn't spoken to her at dinner the night before and had gone to bed early from exhaustion. Despite his attempts to contact her, Nicole remained silent, which made him even more worried. He also contacted some of her friends and her mother, but no one had seen her. That evening, when David returned home and Nicole had not returned, he became alarmed. Worried, he decided to go to the sheriff's office, but was told that there was not enough time to classify her as missing. However, David convinced the police to investigate her whereabouts, as her behavior was very unusual, and he feared that something might have happened to her. Police arrived at David's home and discovered that, in addition to Nicole, her 2003 Volkswagen Jetta was also missing. Nicole had left for work that morning, but was gone. Her mother became concerned about Nicole's disappearance, especially since she had not received any calls from her daughter all day, which worried her. After police confirmed that no one had seen Nicole since she went missing, they began searching for her that same day. The family of the Nicole booked flights to Washington, hoping for the best and wanting to assist in finding their daughter as quickly as possible. Everyone was confused because Nicole was known to be reliable and responsible. She would never have vanished or ignored calls. Even if she couldn't answer right away, she would have called back soon. As her silence continued, her parents and husband grew increasingly worried. Those involved in the search for Nicole sprang into action immediately. Nicole's mother and stepfather went straight to the police upon arriving in the city. Members of the Alcoholics Anonymous Club, who cared deeply for Nicole and wanted to support her family, also joined the search efforts. The club was significant to Nicole, as she never missed a meeting and was set to receive an award for 8 years of sobriety, which she took great pride in. There was no reason for her to leave or abandon everything. Nicole's voicemail was filled with calls from friends and family, but none of them had been able to reach her. Some were concerned that Nicole might have relapsed, despite successfully battling her addiction for years. The police were actively searching for her, searching the surrounding areas of Linwood, but they found nothing. Meanwhile, Nicole's parents took action by creating a website to gather information about Nicole. Many people responded to the family's call for help, but most of the messages were just well wishes, and the little information they received turned out to be false. The search seemed to stall until a new event changed the course of the investigation. On February 7, a local resident was jogging near a wooded area of San Francisco Park, near a small lake. He accidentally discovered a strange object under a raspberry bush. Curious, he approached and was horrified to discover the body of a girl. A nearby witness quickly called the police. The police arrived in time, and acquaintances recognized the body as Nicole's. Forensic experts later confirmed that there was no evidence of rape. After the autopsy in the laboratory, it was proven that the Nicole had received multiple injuries during the beating, but the cause of death was asphyxia. The Nicole had multiple blunt force injuries on her legs, torso, and head, indicating a brutal murder driven by personal hatred. This raised the question, who could have done this? Nicole had no known enemies. The case was changed from a disappearance to a murder investigation. The news of her death was devastating for David and parents. News of her death devastated David and her parents. Police began investigating her bank card transactions to trace her final movements. They discovered that her card was last used on January 30 in a nearby town where she had paid for gas. Police requested video footage from the gas station, suspecting that the killer may have made the purchase instead of Nicole and hoping to identify him in the footage. While police wait for surveillance camera footage, they continue to search for Nicole's car, as it may contain important information for the case. Police reviewed Nicole's identity and social connections, but still found no clues. Nicole was known as one of the friendliest members of her work group and club. She had no enemies. Instead, she was a devoted friend, a loving wife, a caring daughter, and a skilled employee who loved her pets. Nicole even turned her own struggle with alcohol into a positive by supporting others who were trying to get sober, setting an example for them. While the police were searching for the car, her relatives and friends shared information about the missing car and Nicole's situation. They publicly appealed for help, urging people to be aware of the car and avoid touching it. Flyers were distributed that stressed the importance of calling the police immediately if the car was discovered, as the car was linked to Nicole's murder. This prompted local residents to pay attention to Nicole's car. On February 21, 2006, her car was discovered parked near the university. Police quickly seized the car for forensic analysis, hoping to gather evidence to arrest the perpetrator and piece together the events surrounding the tragedy. Inside the car, they discovered a large amount of trash and various items, including books and sports equipment. Police discovered that after Nicole went missing, someone had used her ID and credit cards. Police are investigating the possibility that Nicole's car may have broken down on the way and she was picked up by a stranger and harmed, and the location of her car was unusual because Nicole was supposed to be traveling to another city. The position of the car seat suggested that it had been driven by someone much larger and taller than her. In the lab, experts meticulously measured the seat position to gather clues about a potential suspect. They found DNA evidence inside the car, including hair and a single fingerprint. Police collected DNA and checked. Several patrol officers searched the area where the car was found. They asked anyone nearby if they had seen Nicole's car or who had parked it, but this did not yield any useful information. The police discovered that the car had been parked in the lot since February 10, as an illegal parking ticket from that date was stuck to the windshield. Unfortunately, there were no surveillance cameras available to assist in the investigation. Forensic tests showed that all traces of DNA in her car belonged to Nicole and David. The investigation yielded no new information to solve the case. By early April, there had been no progress. Nicole's parents had offered a $10,000 reward for any information that could lead to the arrest of the perpetrator. During this time, Nicole's mother, Gail, made frequent appearances on various television channels to raise awareness of the case. After a while, Nicole's family had to return to Arizona to work, but they kept in touch with the police who were handling the investigation. Nicole's father, Rod, was heartbroken and frustrated that the investigation was taking so long. Despite their efforts, the investigation continued without any breakthroughs. In September, the case was handed over to an experienced police officer. The new police quickly requested a search warrant for the house of the Nicole, which had not been done before. He aimed to find clues among her belongings, particularly on Nicole's computer. Unfortunately, the house revealed no signs of a crime, no blood or other evidence. The computer also yielded no useful information. Police continued to interview witnesses and acquaintances of Nicole. One of them was Barbara, a friend who had met Nicole at an Alcoholics Anonymous club. They had planned to meet at a coffee shop the evening Nicole went missing, but she never showed up. At first, Barbara thought Nicole was just running late. Then Barbara tried calling Nicole several times that day, but Nicole did not answer any of her calls. During this time, the police still had no clues to the case. Meanwhile, Nicole's parents, Rob and Gail, were at their home in Arizona. Their grief did not subside for a year. Feeling desperate, they decided to hire a private investigator because they were puzzled by the inconsistencies in the case. Nicole had left the house without her wedding ring, which was very unusual for someone who was so proud of her marriage and who would never willingly remove such a meaningful symbol. A private investigator began his investigation, but no leads were found. Nicole's family then increased the reward for information about the criminal to $25,000. Organizations focused on fighting crime and finding missing persons contributed an additional $1,000. The community remained tense, knowing that a dangerous criminal was still at large, the perpetrator seemingly without a motive, suggesting that he could be a madman ready to strike at any time. The police then requested a search warrant for Nicole's computer, believing it might contain clues about the criminal. In October 2009, the private investigator hired by Nicole's parents was charged with fraud. He falsely claimed to have found evidence in the case, but said he needed money to handle it. Her parents gave him more money, but then the private investigator disappeared and took on another case. As a result, his license was revoked. Nicole's parents no longer have a private investigator and no leads on the identity of the killer. In 2011, 5 years after Nicole's death, the investigation was still ongoing, but no significant updates were made. On March 21, 2012, the final suspect was arrested and revealed to be Nicole's husband, David. By this time, police had enough evidence against him. He was held in custody with bail set at $1 million. The prosecutor noted that the case had progressed significantly due to new technologies that were previously unavailable, especially in the field of forensic science. Police found that David's account of the night before Nicole's disappearance did not seem convincing. Additionally, police noted that only David and Nicole's DNA and fingerprints were found in her car. If strangers had been in the car, their fingerprints would still be there because they had not been erased. If the criminal had tried to erase the fingerprints, there would have been no fingerprints left. The driver's seat was adjusted to fit David's size, and surveillance footage from a gas station captured a person resembling him. After Nicole went missing, he used her cell phone to make multiple calls from various locations around the city. Police believed he was trying to throw the investigation off track. However, modern tracking technology allowed them to pinpoint the exact location of the calls, proving that Nicole could not have been there at the time because she was dead. Notably, both Nicole's and her husband's phones worked in the same areas. Strangulation, the method of murder, usually indicates a personal connection between the killer and the victim. Evidence found at the crime scene indicated that the killer was someone close to Nicole. This is consistent with the fact that she was not sexually assaulted. The medical examiner determined Nicole's time of death. It was found that she was killed at night or early in the morning while still in bed. Her limbs were clean, with no signs of struggle. Forensic experts determined the time of death by examining Nicole's stomach contents. They found that the food Nicole had eaten the night before was still undigested, suggesting that she had been murdered before she got up to go to work the next morning. Although they appeared to be a loving couple, it was clear that this was just a cover, and there were multiple reasons behind the crime. At the time, the family was facing serious financial difficulties. David is quite the party animal. He enjoys drinking and smoking marijuana, which puts a dent in the family budget. Nicole spent a lot of time and effort dealing with her addiction and had been trying to stay sober for years. David was jealous of his wife's strength. He also had affairs, and during the investigation, it was discovered that he had had at least 4 affairs. His lifestyle meant that he often pressured his wife into having sex. He even tried to drug her at a club to convince her, but she refused. This made him angry. He often met women at clubs, which led to sexual encounters. Just days after Nicole went missing, he began seeking new relationships. By the time he was arrested, David had remarried and had a child. This was especially painful for Nicole's parents, as their daughter had always wanted children, but David had no interest in that. Furthermore, David quickly began collecting documents to claim Nicole's life insurance. After gathering all the information, David was called in for questioning. At the police station, he denied any involvement in the murder. When asked to take a lie detector test, he agreed, but the results showed that he had lied. He was eventually arrested and charged with murder, but David firmly denied any involvement in the crime. The trial started in September 2013, 7 years after Nicole passed away. Her family and friends gathered in the courthouse, hoping for justice. The defense lawyer for the David argued that Nicole's death was linked to her relapsed alcohol addiction and possibly a new addiction to prescription drugs. He pointed to an empty pill bottle found during a search of the bathroom as evidence of this. And the defense insisted that all the evidence against David was circumstantial and that the case was based on speculation. Nicole's parents testified in court that David did not participate in the search efforts, did not help distribute flyers, and only pretended to be upset. Nicole's mother explained that the medication in question was a prescription painkiller prescribed to her daughter to treat severe abdominal pain caused by her endometriosis, which had significantly improved her condition. Prosecutors were unable to prove intentional conduct, so David Pitts was charged with second-degree murder. David was sentenced to 18 years and 4 months in prison. the maximum sentence under state law. Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Carrie Ann Jopek. Carrie Ann Jopek was born on August 17, 1968, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a large city with a population of over 500,000. Her parents, Carolyn and Robert, divorced when she was very young. Shortly after, her mother remarried a man named Frederick Toussaint. The family lived in downtown Milwaukee along with 2 daughters, the youngest of whom was named Maggie. Carrie grew up in a loving family and had a close relationship with Frederick, whom she considered her biological father. She did not know of her biological father's existence, as he did not communicate with her. Carrie was well educated and had everything she needed. She was friendly and kind, which helped her make many friends, including older teenagers. However, during her teenage years, Carrie's personality began to change, leading to conflicts with her mother and stepfather. When she discovered that Frederick was not her biological father, she became very angry with her parents. She often used this information against him in arguments. Some relatives described Carrie as stubborn, while others thought she was simply going through a challenging period in her life, especially since she was only 13 years old at the time. On March 15, 1982, Carrie was allowed by her parents to stay overnight at her friend Marcia's house. Since both girls were in 7th grade, they went to school together the next morning, March 16. However, because they were in different classes, they could only see each other at lunchtime. Carrie was upset because her teacher had reprimanded her for arguing with another student who had spilled paint on her. The teacher then contacted Carrie's parents to report Carrie's behavior and truancy. The teachers suggested that Carrie's mother pick her up after school to discuss her actions. However, Carrie's house was close enough to the school, so her mother allowed Carrie to walk home by herself. Carrie was upset. She knew her mother and stepfather would probably scold her, so she didn't want to go home. Her friend comforted her, and they parted ways after school. Although reluctant, Carrie had to go home because she lived only a few blocks from school. Normally, it would only take her 3 minutes to walk home, but that day, she never returned. It is important to note that the 1980s in America were generally a safe time. People trusted each other, and crime rates were low compared to today. Additionally, the incident occurred in a crowded area where everyone knew each other, so no one thought it was strange for a 13-year-old girl to walk home from school alone. Carrie did not come home. Carolyn waited for her at home and then went out to look for her. Carolyn thought that Carrie had stopped to visit a friend on the way home and would be back soon. It is important to note that they could not contact Carrie because cell phones had not yet been invented. As the night wore on, Carolyn grew increasingly concerned. She set out again to look for her daughter. First, she went to see Carrie's best friend, Robin, who lived across the street. Unfortunately, no one in Robin's house had seen or heard from Carrie since school ended. Next, Carolyn contacted Marsh, who had spent the night with Carrie. However, Marsh did not see Carrie after she left. Eager to help, Carrie's friends joined the search and began checking with neighbors and classmates who might have seen her after school, but no one had any information. By 11 p.m., a search party of local volunteers who knew the family was formed. Many neighbors, friends, and acquaintances took to the streets to patrol the area and ask questions. Unfortunately, they could not find any information about the Carrie. They decided to wait for Carrie until the next morning. On March 17, when the girl still had not returned home, Carolyn went to the police station to report her missing. By then, the Carrie had been missing for almost a day, prompting police to act quickly, as the situation could be serious. Initially, the primary theory was that Carrie had run away, as she was known to be a difficult teenager who sometimes skipped classes and often spent the night at friends' houses. Police thought that Carrie was simply spending time with friends. However, after interviewing all her friends, they realized this was not the case. None of them had seen Carrie after school, leading them to conclude that something must have happened to her on her way home. They then began questioning residents living along her route that day. But these inquiries yielded no useful information. None of the residents had seen Carrie or noticed anything unusual. The police discovered that Carrie had been upset with her family after learning that her stepfather was not her biological father. Police believed this revelation might have driven her to search for her biological father, whom she could have gone to see that day. By this time, a day had passed since Carrie left school, and there was still no news about her. The police located her biological father, Robert, who lived in a different area of Malak, hoping she might be with him. Unfortunately, when they contacted him, their hopes were dashed. Robert explained that he had been at work all day the previous day and had not seen Carrie. A thorough inspection was carried out at the house of the Carrie. Police searched through all her belongings for clues, but found nothing significant. Consequently, the search for the missing person continued. A day after her disappearance, there was still hope that the teenager was alive. However, the critical window for finding a missing person is 48 hours, after which the chances of a successful rescue decrease significantly. Therefore, the police needed to act quickly. During the investigation, the police focused on Johns, who lived just a few houses away from Carrie's family. John was 17 at the time and had developed a close relationship with Carrie. The police learned that he had a rebellious personality and a history of legal trouble, including convictions for petty theft and selling marijuana. Despite their 4-year age difference, John showed an interest in Carrie, which raised concerns. The police decided to investigate further and brought John in for questioning. John adamantly denied any involvement in Carrie's disappearance, claiming that he had not even seen her that day. The police were unable to gather any useful information during their questioning, and there was no solid evidence against John. As a result, he was released. The police then turned their attention to her stepfather, Frederick. In these cases, the perpetrator was often someone close to the victim, and cases involving stepfathers were not uncommon, which added to their interest in him. The police looked closely at her family, especially the relationship between Carrie and Frederick. They discovered that the two had recently been fighting, a change from their previous relationship. Frederick attributed the turmoil to Carrie's adolescence, believing that her hormones had made her more irritable and prone to anger over small matters. Despite this, he maintains that he would never harm her. An anonymous witness reported some details regarding her stepfather, Frederick. They mentioned that the day after Carrie went missing, Frederick poured a new concrete slab in the backyard. The witness suggested that this may have been Frederick's way of disposing of the body by burying it underneath the concrete slab. This information seems suspicious and should be investigated. The concrete slab was examined using ground-penetrating radar, and no suspicious voids were detected. When the area beneath the slab was excavated, it was found to be empty. The yard was well maintained, showing no signs of recent digging. The police decided to conduct a second round of questioning with the Carrie's friends, focusing on the possibility that she might have run away with a boyfriend. Although Carrie never mentioned having a boyfriend to her parents, the police speculated that she may have kept this relationship secret. However, her friends firmly denied this possibility, insisting that Carrie was not in a relationship with anyone. The police tried to collect evidence, but it is important to note that forensic science in the 1980s was not as advanced as it is today. At that time, there was no DNA testing, trackable cell phones, cameras, or GPS technology. This made finding evidence more difficult. As a result, the police could not find any clues. Carrie seemed to have disappeared without a trace. Lack of evidence then caused the case to stall. The police did not have a strong motive for Carrie's abduction, nor could they find a suspect. To raise public awareness of their daughter's disappearance, Carrie's parents turned to the media for help. They appealed to anyone with information about Carrie to come forward, but still, no leads came. The investigation was stalled due to lack of evidence. More than a year later, on September 2, 1983, a mysterious body was found in the John family home. The contractor was repairing the back porch. He leveled the ground and dug up a significant amount of dirt. While doing so, he noticed a foul odor coming from a pile of disturbed dirt. Upon inspection, he discovered human remains. The contractor immediately called the police. Everyone believed the remains to be those of Carrie. The body was then subjected to dental records analysis to determine the identity of the remains. All members of John's family were questioned. During his police interview, John denied any involvement and requested a lawyer. A year earlier, the police had lacked substantial evidence to charge or detain him, so they released him but continued to view him as a suspect. The remaining members of John's family have denied any involvement in the murder. The medical examiner investigated Carrie's cause of death and discovered severe injuries to her head and neck. She had significant internal bleeding, with lacerations on her left side. These injuries suggested that she had been attacked by someone else, leading to the case being classified as a homicide. Unfortunately, the autopsy was unable to provide enough information to determine whether rape had occurred. Carrie's body was found in her friend John's backyard, but this does not mean that he was responsible for her death or that he buried her there. Witnesses said that on the day she disappeared, there was a party at John's house. Police had to piece together the case from scratch, with few clues to follow. And so much time had passed since the party that it was difficult for those who were there to remember what happened. Several teenagers were interviewed about the party at John's house. Some claimed they were there but could not remember any details. Others said they had only heard about the party and were not actually there. John claimed he did not organize any events that day, and police found no evidence to contradict his statement. 4 days after Carrie's body was discovered, police received a new lead. A witness identified Jose Ferreira, a 16-year-old boy who lived next door to Carrie. He was seen in John's backyard when Carrie's body was discovered, which raised some suspicion. The police decided to pursue the lead and invited Jose to the police station for questioning. Jose denied any involvement in Carrie's death or disappearance. Jose knew her well and was friends with her, so he was very upset when he discovered her body in the backyard. He claimed that he did it to honor his old friend. Jose's story seemed credible. He was also questioned about a party at John's house on the day Carrie went missing, but he said it never happened. The police had no evidence against Jose, so they had to release him after questioning. Friends described Jose as friendly and cheerful, and no one believed he would hurt Carrie. They spent a lot of time together and were close friends. The investigation continued, but no leads were found. The case hit a dead end. It wasn't until 33 years after Carrie's murder that the investigation made any progress. On October 11, 2015, a man contacted a journalist to confess to the murder. His name was Jose Ferreira. In addition to contacting the journalist, he called the hotline and admitted to killing 13-year-old Carrie Ann Jopek years earlier. He also confessed to his wife about the crime. Journalists and switchboard operators were stunned by his confession and immediately notified the police. At the same time, Jose's wife learned of his crimes and went to the nearest police station to report him. Jose was 50 years old at the time. The police reviewed the case file. Despite Jose's confession, the police were in no hurry to arrest him. 2 days after his telephone confession, Jose turned himself into the police station and gave a detailed account of the events of 33 years ago. His sudden actions and confession were because he believed it would prevent his wife from getting a divorce. This statement puzzled the police. Jose said that on the day of the incident. Carrie returned home from school. She noticed a party going on at John's house. She wanted to avoid going home where she would face punishment, so she decided to join the party. At the party, she met Jose and they engaged in conversation. Then they went down to the basement together to find some wine. On the way down to the basement, he kissed her and she agreed. As they walked down the stairs to the basement, Carrie suddenly changed her mind and said she wanted to leave. In a fit of rage, he pushed her, causing her to lose her balance and fall down the stairs, resulting in a broken neck. In a moment of loss of control, he raped her, not knowing that she had died from the fall. His actions were classified as sexual assault and use of force. He defended himself by claiming that he had loved Carrie. He felt offended by her decision to leave, but he insisted that he did not want her to die. He panicked and dismissed the incident as an accident. Jose feared going to jail and ruining his life. He seized the opportunity during a lively party when no one noticed his presence in the basement. He needed to dispose of the body quickly to avoid being seen. Jose hid the body, and when night fell, he took a shovel and dragged Carrie into the backyard. In the dark, he quietly dug a hole and buried her. He believed that his plan had gone smoothly and that no one had seen him. However, the police were baffled by his story. They found it hard to believe that at such a crowded party, no one had noticed them together, and no one had noticed him digging the hole and burying Carrie. The police suspected that Jose might have had an accomplice, but he adamantly denied that anyone else was involved. Carrie's family said that Jose often visited them and was present at the farewell and burial. Carrie's mother remembered that Jose had mentioned being haunted by Carrie's ghost, which surprised them, but they ignored it at the time. While this could have been a warning sign, no one thought that the killer could be one of the friendly people in the neighborhood. Jose later revealed that Carrie's spirit had haunted him for years, making it impossible for him to live a normal life. This ultimately contributed to his decision to confess to the crime to ease his conscience. During the trial, the prosecutor asked for Jose to be convicted of second-degree murder. The defense argued that the case was manslaughter. Initially, bail was set at $200,000, but Jose then began to recant his confession. The prosecution's case relied heavily on Jose's confession. It would have been difficult to convince the jury of his guilt without any evidence. Ultimately, the prosecution offered a plea deal. In March 2017, Jose Ferreira agreed to plead guilty to sexually assaulting Carrie, which reduced his prison sentence to 7 years. The final sentence was handed down 35 years after Carrie was murdered. In 2022, Jose was released from prison and moved to the nearby town of Glendale, Wisconsin. He was listed in a police database as a potential sex offender and placed on supervision. Carrie's family expressed outrage that the man who murdered and raped a 13-year-old girl was released after only 7 years. He now lives a quiet life, as if nothing had happened, and as if he had not taken an innocent life.